Welcome to What If I Don't Like It? I'm your host, KT Baldessaro, and on today's episode, we'll be talking with Jayare about the 2001 epic fantasy adventure, Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring. Welcome to episode 12. We are at the Bon Jovi point, I guess. If we do 2 episodes a month and there are 12 months in a year, 24 episodes, our 12th episode will be our halfway point, meaning that we are now living on a prayer, guys. Very, very exciting stuff. And I'm super hyped to continue the theme for May of Opinions May Vary, where we're going to have the other co-host, JR of Opinions May Vary, on the show. We had Alex Squires, the other host, on previously on the episode just before this, talking about Last of Us. Very, very exciting episode. Highly encourage you to check that out as well. But today we have JR talking to us about an incredibly timely film, despite the fact that it came out, 2 decades ago. We're talking about Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. I say that is timely because if you don't know, the Lord of the Rings trilogy will be re-released in select theaters this coming June, that's next month, with Fellowship of the Ring, the one that we're doing right now, playing on June 8th. The remaining 2 films will play on the subsequent 2 days, the 9th and then, of course, the 10th, and that will be The Two Towers and The Return of the King. The re-release will feature the films in 4K Ultra HD remastered versions, which include extra scenes and more than 2.5 hours of additional footage. If you want tickets for that, it's not hard to get that. You can get them from Fathom Events. It's going to happen in Cinemark, AMC, and Regal. So, just type into whatever search you want and you'll be able to find tickets to that pretty awesome event. So I said that JR is part of Opinions May Vary. He also does a handful of voices along with me and Brett Kelly, who we've heard on previous episodes, in Starwell, which is the audio drama that Alex wrote about a world in which superheroes are helping out a foundation to, kind of help kids and things like that who might have dreams or wishes to see them, as well as other charitable things. Of course, what if people want to start meeting villains? And our protagonist, Mary, is in charge of setting up those kinds of meetings. And of course, we're going to find a world in which maybe good and bad is not as black and white as you think. Super fun. Again, I get to play Gansfield, one of the villains, as well as a voice on the podcast within the podcast. This is How Crime, the name of the podcast within it, in which I play Ilona Urich, is one of the hosts of that. As you can see, I have a podcast voice and I get to use it in that particular format. You can catch me on Movie Night Extravaganza. Just this past week, we did a special Friday episode, and that's because we were having Renee Roon join us, and they are in Australia. So she does the wonderful job of joining us very early in the morning, and we join her very late at night. So that time difference makes it work. We got to talk about a film that, God, it's such an long-time favorite of mine that I had forgotten about and came back to. Della Morte dell'Amore. You might know it as Cemetery Man. You might know it as Mi Novia es un Zombie. And if that's the case, you might not like it because that's a terrible title, but still a very good film starring Rupert Everett from 1994. You can catch that by going to my YouTube channel and seeing the playlist labeled Movie Night Extravaganza Appearances. A lot of fun. I really enjoyed that episode. And if you are not familiar with that movie, you can catch it on Shudder. So it's out there, it's available. It's not as hard to find as when I originally did in the 90s. Of course, I am still doing movie runtime on TikTok for television and film reviews, trivia, and much, much more. So please follow me there. And again, I said you could get that Movie Night Extravaganza episode by following me on YouTube. That's also now going to be Movie Runtime. Got to get rid of the KT at the end of that handle. So now it's just Movie Runtime across both YouTube and TikTok. In this episode, we talk about a pretty interesting topic to me. We keep coming back and forth to it, and it's the idea of how to address people who may not have indulged in a film or thing that you really, really like, and how sometimes people can come on way too strong about a thing that they like, or way too judgmental about the fact that you might not have seen this thing that is so incredibly quintessential to their experience. We talk about how to handle that, why it's really key to use your words thoughtfully and be empathetic about the person that you're talking to. Don't be careless and aggressive because someone might not have seen or know about something that you really, really care about. There's a wonderful line in Ted Lasso. It's be curious, not judgmental. And I think that that's really a key to part of this show. I'm curious why people haven't seen something. I'm never really judgmental about why they haven't seen it. I'd like to see if we can maybe break that apart and get them to at least experience something that they've held back on. I don't need them to change their whole viewpoint. And that's what's really, really important. Because if somebody comes to watching something with you and they know that if they don't like it nearly as much as you like it or even like it at all, they will definitely drag their feet in the sand to watching or experiencing that particular item with you. So be kind and offer an olive branch. Treat it like a really exciting experience. You've got this person here who you may care about. I'm hoping that's why you're trying to get them to watch something. And now you can experience through their new eyes what it might be like to see this film that you've seen many, many, many times for the first time. So I hope that you can take that into your brain and into your hearts as you approach maybe these kinds of conversations with people in your lives. I did want to add a quick little update, or maybe our first update on someone who has watched something that we asked them to watch as part of the show, the whole format, and then continued to, and then of their own volition, watched more. I am, of course, talking about Alex Squires, who has watched the entirety of Last of Us now, not just episode 3. He went back and he watched them all, and he did say, pretty good show. He did enjoy it. Really, really awesome. I even did find out from Bob Savage, who worked on, of course, Girl in the Basement, that they listened to that episode, also had trouble playing the game and enjoying it, and skipped the series because of that reason. But after listening to our show, got excited and gave it a chance, and they too agree. Quality television was watched. What a win. Super excited. But even more than a win, I'm just really glad that the both of them got to experience not only that particular episode with Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett, which is so touching and so amazing, but that they got to then enjoy the entire series. Like not just an amuse-bouche, an entire feast. That is what I am aiming for here, and yay to hear about the success. I did want to just point out the cover art for this particular episode. I've been starting to include the guest's face more and more into an image that I find a little funny, and you'll see this is JR's face right in front of the rubber puppet that I tell you about in this episode. The transformation from Ian Holmes's face into the hissing face in the too little butter over too much toast scene is not just CGI. It's CGI and a rubber puppet and Ian's face. He loved it so much. Well, you're going to have to listen to the episode to find out what happened. But if you're looking at that cover and like, what is this? That is a rubber puppet made to look like scary hissing Ian Holmes just behind the shoulder of our beloved guest this week. Well, without further ado, let's hop right in there and let's see why JR, the host of a very nerdy podcast, might not have seen Lord of the Rings.
The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it.
Welcome to episode number 12. We are joined today by JR of Opinions May Vary, and we are going to be covering the 2001 epic adventure film, Fellowship of the Ring. Welcome, JR.
Thank you so much for having me. This is truly um, a fun experience being on the other side of this.
Yes, I was talking to Alex yesterday because we recorded his episode yesterday, and it is quite surreal for me because I came on your guys' show several times, and I get it was so much fun. And then afterwards, you'd be like, you did really good. You know, you should think about hosting a show." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't know what I would talk about." And then this idea fell on my lap, and I was like, "I could do what Jay and Alex told me to do now."
I vividly remember because we had you on a bunch of times.
Mhm.
I call it the before times, and then 2020 happened, and we all know what happened then. And then the show shifted. We shifted to no longer in person and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I remember it was a little while before we had you on, like in the pandemic era or
Yeah.
whatever we're doing for the show. But I remember because it had been probably the biggest gap between your appearances, and we had you on. We talked. I can't remember what we talked about. It was Letterkenny,
I was gonna say it's
and
Letterkenny with Babs, yeah.
yeah, yep. And I remember after the show we wrapped, and you and Babs had dropped off, and it was just me and Alex doing like our post wrap, and I vividly remember being like, "Yo, KT's just got a good way of talking. Like I could listen to her talk about just whatever. She's just good
Mhm.
at doing it. Like it's and so I'm glad this exists. It
Thank
was
you.
because it's also it's a fun idea.
Yeah.
It's neat. It's different. It's not just talking heads talking about the things they like,
Well,
incessantly.
that's what I've been coming across. I mean, I love that people wanna talk about what they're passionate about, but I've found that we as a culture don't know how to talk about what we're not sure about or what we may not like without becoming so aggressively negative that people don't wanna hear about it. Nobody wants to hear you rage about something, although sometimes people are a little funny about it. Like, it's fun to talk about Alex and his dislike for Last of Us, but he's never, like, mean about it. He's
Yeah,
just funny about it. So I like to have this platform for people to even open up the door and say, "Yeah, like, I haven't seen that movie." I mean, Jared would just pretend about Goonies because he's like, "I don't wanna have this conversation. I don't wanna watch I'm not sure about watching this movie." So if I exist in this place where I haven't seen it, I don't have to have an opinion because people are making me worried about even expressing any opinion, and
right.
that's shit. Don't need that in your
And
life.
God forbid your opinion may be different. It can, especially now in
Mhm.
the era, not era, but there's fandoms have gotten so extreme in so many different things. Like, I've recently gotten into professional wrestling, and I found that,
Oh, yeah.
oh man, the professional wrestling fandoms are cutthroat.
Yeah.
If you, it's just, and it's tough. I've gotten into Formula One the last couple years, and you
Mhm.
hear about when they go race in certain countries, and you hear about all the racist and just vitriol, if that's the correct word, just being
Mhm.
thrown. And I'm like, oh my, you're just fast drivey boys driving in circles. Can we just enjoy something, please? It can be brutal to be, to kind of dive into a fandom, especially if you might disagree with something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the mistake is that when you are a fan of something, it has to be perfect. There are so many things that I love. Dark Souls, for example, is a huge, huge favorite of mine, and yet I am fully aware of how difficult and unattractive playing from software games are for certain people. Like, yeah, it's flawed in its own way, but for me to pretend that it's not is like well, I think it's a symptom of the kind of social political existence that we're in right now where we've changed what is truth as far as like literal political truths, things that are actually happening in society. And that's going to seep backwards into things that are opinions. So now every fan who has an opinion treats it like a fact in the same sort of way that your right or your left wing people are going to treat opinions as facts. And it gets aggressive. It gets like, how dare you tell me I'm wrong? And I'm like, it's not. It's just how I feel having come to this with my experiences.
Absolutely. I fall into that myself. I like a victim of so entrenched in my own personal beliefs that when
Hmm.
someone disagrees with me, it can be a struggle to cope with that and be like,
Hmm.
no, you're supposed to. And I've surrounded myself with a lot of, you know, most of my friends are similar minded. So when someone might have a differing opinion, it's like shocking sometimes. It's like, oh, okay, wait, let me think about this. Like, it can be hard to kind of separate. I like separating the art from the artist. I
Yeah,
very much struggle with that.
me too, so much.
I if I find out that, especially nowadays, not to I don't mean to get political or politicize,
Yeah.
but the last couple years have been very impactful.
Mhm.
My wife is immunocompromised. We
Oh.
have dealt with a lot of nonsense.
Mhm.
So when someone comes out, uh, an actor that I really admire and have admired for years or something, and they say that mask mandates are nonsense and uh, vaccines cause autism, I'm like, I can't enjoy your stuff anymore. It's
Mm.
difficult. Because when I see you, I just want to turn it off. You know.
Mhm.
So I very much struggle with that.
And you're paying them in a certain way, like, you can vote with your dollar. So even though they're playing a character that has nothing to do with the expressed opinion that you're talking about, you know that by consuming this media, you are in a way condoning paying this person, keeping them in the zeitgeist. And honestly, like, Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle, who played Malcolm, was recently doing an interview about quiet on the set and being a child actor. They had a
Right.
wonderful experience as a child, but they were very lucky to be on the set that they were on. And they admitted how incredibly like the lottery it is. Like, you just wind up to being lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time to get the role. It doesn't entirely have anything to do with how talented you are, and that he well knows so many talented actors who we've never seen and we just probably never will. So when there's an absolute amount of lack of jobs, when there's so few positions for these actors, and you have an actor who, as a person, is really shite, give it to someone else. Find another actor. There's a
Yeah.
million of them. Find another actor. I am going to vote this way. I am going to say, no, I'm done watching their art. I'm done condoning this. I mean, it's like the woman from The Mandalorian who lost her job for
Yeah. Yep.
pick a reason. For pick a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's difficult, and I hate that it's come to that. And
Mhm.
there are times where I'll start to get into something, uh, an artist, musician, or whatever,
Mhm.
and before I dive in and start hyper fixating, it's like, let me check their Twitter for any, like, let me scroll back to 2020 or 2016, see what they were saying then. Like, what's their, I hate
Mhm.
that I have to fish for that kind of stuff, and it bums me out sometimes. But man,
Mhm.
I don't like supporting that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's so yeah, Lord of the Rings.
I was gonna say, this makes me think about the title of your show, which is literally called Opinions May Vary.
Yeah,
And what a novel concept that, like, the show is called that, so you have to remember.
yeah, and we joked about it a lot too, because originally OMV started with myself, Alex,
Mhm.
and our friend Justin,
Mhm.
and the original thought was going to be the typical three dudes in a basement with maybe different, talking about comic books, TV, movies, and stuff, but like, no, here's why Superman's better, here's why Batman's better, that kind of stuff, and then it turned out like it, we all pretty much had the same opinions on everything, so with the name of the show just stuck, but really, and maybe to the detriment of us, maybe people were like, oh, this is probably just your typical, angry white dudes yelling at each other. When in
Mhm.
actuality, the the shift, the culture of the show was about, we tried our best to, most of the time, lift things up and
Mhm.
present cool things, either with established artists, creators, whatever, or maybe someone that you haven't heard of that, like, you should hear of this. I thought we did a pretty good job. I have since retired.
Yes, the show is no longer on.
I took my leave after 400 episodes, 10 years. Alex has continued on, making incredible work with Starwell.
Yeah.
I fell behind, but I've been catching up on it, and I was trying to keep it a secret from Alex. I was gonna, kind of bombard him with information on all of my thoughts on the first season of Starwell. But then I heard the name Narcolepsimian, and I was like, I can't not. I have to go immediately to Alex and be like, dude, how did you come up with this? Okay, yeah, I have no train of thought with this. I was really proud of what we made.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
10 years is a very, very, very long time to be doing a podcast. That is. So you guys did one. How frequently were you putting out one?
We, for the first 7 or 8 years, I think it was 7, we did it weekly,
Holy fuck.
which was brutal. It
Brutal.
it was killer because initially it was just the three of us doing our thing. And it was exciting, especially at the beginning. We recorded every Sunday. I couldn't wait. We're gonna meet up. We're gonna talk about comics and like Walking Dead had just started on TV, so we're
Oh,
gonna
when
talk
it
about
was
that like
good, it was so
every
good.
week, right? Yeah, it
Wow.
was so good. It was the thing, and we could talk about Walking Dead, and we could talk about comic books. New 52 had just started. It was a big deal. Whether it was good or not is, I don't know, up in the air. But we could talk about comics, and Justin wound up leaving the show after I can't remember how many, I think 9 or 10 episodes. And then it was Alex and I, and we realized we wanted to keep doing this, but we're not sure if just the two of us are interesting enough to
Mhm.
to handle this on our own. So we started enlisting the help of our friends. Some of them probably we leaned on them too much, and we like there's no way of thanking them enough for doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Brett, Colin, Joe, those are like the main ones that
Yeah.
we really just week in and week out. Hey Brett, what are you doing? Hey Colin, what are you doing? But yeah, we did the weekly thing for many years. We eventually branched out, trying to reach out to people in the industry, comic creators. We talked with you and Jared about
Mhm.
Girl in the Basement, years and
Mhm.
years, hyping up the Kickstarter and all that.
Mhm. You had, all 3 of us ladies on talking about, Wonder Woman, which was
Yeah,
such a cool idea that you guys were like, "We wanna do a Wonder Woman episode." The whole thing about Wonder Woman is that it's empowering women for the first time. Why don't we just give the show to our 3 favorite female guests to talk about it? Like,
yeah.
brilliant.
It was fun, and it was also the only time we've ever received a strike on YouTube. Was for that episode. Literally minutes after it was posted, it gotten stricken on YouTube. And keep in mind, I think to this day we had like 12 subs on YouTube. YouTube was never our bread and
Mhm.
butter, and I don't know if it was just some sort of algorithm or yeah. Obviously, Wonder Woman was pretty divisive at the time,
Mhm.
and to have three women giving their opinion on Wonder Woman, literally within minutes of posting it, I got an email from YouTube that was like, "Your episode has been removed due to a content violation," or I can't remember the exact. I have it. I actually have it saved. I do have the email
That's
saved. It's
great.
like a moment, a weird moment of pride for us. It got restored.
We were bullying male egos, so we got taken down probably for bullying.
Right? It was the most bizarre thing because it's not like it had a bunch of views on YouTube either. It's just immediately got struck, and
Yeah.
we had to like submit an appeal to get it put back up and all this stuff. It's funny in hindsight, but also it's sad
Yeah.
when you really think about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we did branch out every now and then. For our 100th episode, our friends, again, Brett, Joe, and Colin, gave us the day off, and they hosted an episode for us while Alex and I
Oh.
sat upstairs and played video games. It was fun.
That's tight. And that's Brett who was on our show previously. He was on The Usual Suspects. So people who are listening, that's that Brett.
Right? Yes. Yep. Brett Kelly, a true god among men, and
Yes.
one of the best friends that I have ever had.
He's such an amazing cheerleader.
Yeah.
Like, he's so ready to help and, like, support all of his friends who are making art, and I'm saying this knowing he's probably gonna not probably, I'm saying this knowing he will listen to this
He's
episode
absolutely
100%. He's
listening. Yeah.
100% listening to this right now at work and smiling ear to ear and a little embarrassed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. He is one of, like I said, one of the best friends I have and will ever have. I
Aw.
am honored to have met him. We worked
Mhm.
at at OMV. We called it the local amusement park. It's pretty much where we all met. Where us OMV kind of crew met.
That was gonna be my questions. How did you meet Alex?
Yeah, that was at the local theme park. We worked together. I worked there for 2 seasons. He's worked there for many more than that. But there were 2 summers specifically where he also worked because he mostly does the scary stuff in Halloween
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
But there were 2 summers. I worked there for 2 summers and 2 Halloweens, and he also did 2 summers as well. We didn't really work together very
Mhm.
often. It was pretty rare, to be honest, where it was straight up, we are working together in the same spot. We were in the same department, but again, amusement parks are large. There's a lot of places to work. But so we all worked at a local theme park together. It wasn't until like a couple years, like it was always I was friends with Alex by extension. So
Mhm.
like, oh, some of the guys are getting together to hang out, and it's like me, Alex, Justin, Brett, the group. But it was never
Mhm.
just me and Alex. And I feel like everyone has those kind of friendships where like I'll
Yeah.
hang out with this person, I consider him a good friend of mine, but we never hang out alone. It's always with a third party.
Yeah.
And that was Alex and I for a while. And then Justin left the show, and that was like the first time it was really just the two of us.
Mhm.
And then
Mm.
it just kind of blossomed into, he's obviously one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Um, in each other's wedding parties, at the end
Mhm.
of the day, and we made so much together. I couldn't see like doing it with anyone else. He was the one who kind of kept me in check
Yeah.
when either my attention would just kind of wander, and or if I was just spouting nonsense and making the show look stupid. But
Hardly.
yeah, we met at the theme park. It's where I met Brett.
Mhm.
I met most of my core friends, pretending to be pirates and gunfighters and Looney Tunes. So it's
That's
pretty neat.
hilarious. Yeah. I definitely agree with you that Alex has a very grounding quality. For someone who looks like, he can't even describe he looks more, intimidating. We had talked about this on the episode with him yesterday. He looks a little bit more intimidating or whimsical or crazy, like, you don't know what you're gonna get when you walk up to this person, and yet he is such a grounding force whenever you do a creative project. You're like, "Oh, wow, this guy really keeps us together and keeps us going," which, when I often work with him for FX, that's amazing. To know the rapport between the 2 of you, I'm really surprised to hear this information. I thought you were gonna say something like, "Oh, well, we went to kindergarten together."
No, no, yeah, we met in 2006. We started the show in 2012,
Mhm.
which now that I think about it, good lord,
Yeah. Were people even alive back then? What was that?
time is insane.
That's a good a question I wanted to ask you. 10 years, a decade, you might as well use the bigger terminology.
Yep.
A decade of podcasting. Any tips? Any, like, hindsight you would offer to someone like myself who's kind of just starting out?
Uh, I It's so easy to fall out of it. One of the benefits of us doing it weekly is it kept us going. Maybe to the detriment of our of the quality of the episodes, or maybe our own sanity,
Mm.
but it kept us going. It's like, okay, what are
Mhm.
we doing this week? Whereas when we switched to bi-weekly after 7 or 8 years, I can't remember what it was. Really, it was semi-monthly. We did two a month. We initially was going to be like, we're going to do every other week, but it turned into two a month. Which,
2 a month, yeah.
working in finance, so there is a difference between biweekly and semi-monthly. It's one of the dumb parts of my job. Um,
But that's what we do here too, just 2 a
right.
month.
Yep. Yep. And it got to the point where it was like, okay, we're doing two a month. That'll give us time to work it out. When in actuality, it just gives you time to put it off. And it's
Yes.
like we'd get down to crunch time, and we're at like, getting toward the middle of the second week, and we still have, nothing planned. And to his credit, Alex is pretty much always working on finding guests. It's just finding guests can be difficult at times when
It
you're not
really
just
can be.
trying to lean on your friends the whole time.
Mhm.
And but yeah, consistency is probably the number one thing
Mhm.
that I found to just stay on top of it, because you see so many podcasts start, and then 7, 10 episodes in, they're gone,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh right, this is work.
Mhm.
This can be time consuming. You're not
Mhm.
making money unless you're really like hustling and grinding it out.
Yeah, not when you're starting. I found so many artists from listening to the show as well, like, there's a lot of prints in my house that are from Because when people illustrate comic books, there's the people you know, but there's the hundreds there's the thousands of other artists who are still illustrating comic books. There's just so many comic books now. And you guys would bring someone up to light, and I would look at their work and be like, oh my freaking God. There was a woman who did, it's a koi pond, but when you step back, it's Deadpool's face.
Was that Sarah Richard? I
I
can't
can.
remember.
So I do a thing with this show where I put corrections at the end. So if we don't know
Right,
something while we're talking, I'll throw it in there. I will look. I mean, I can just go into the other room and look at the wall because it's signed on the. Because I got a print of that.
right.
It was a really great example of people you hadn't met, didn't totally know yet, who had amazing art, and then also, and I find this happening on our show as well, someone will go off on a side tangent or a related topic, bring something in that I would have never thought of, where I'm like, wow, the brain on this, the mind grapes on this guest are fascinating, even more so than the topic I brought them here to talk about.
We got incredibly, I don't know if it was luck or if it was just we really Alex just had a knack for finding those interesting people.
Mm.
But in the 400 episodes that we did, it was 400-ish because there was a couple like one-offs, special episodes that we did, but typically we just say 400
Hmm.
of the ones that weren't just our friends, uh, or close friends that we were just leaning on. Like there was a time where we had Brett on like out of 8 weeks, we had him on like six. It was brutal. We leaned on Brett so many times.
Oh.
Of the actual guest episodes, I can think of off the top of my head maybe two where I was like, that was rough. Like that was
Yeah.
tough. Just trying to just dragging, trying. I don't know if it was just maybe my questions weren't there
Mhm.
or the vibe wasn't right. They weren't feeling it, or maybe they just, were throwing us a bone and weren't really interested or something. But really, I can think of maybe two or three times where it was just like that was. I don't want to say it was a dud, but it was difficult.
Let's shift gears and go with your letterbox top four, or just your top four movies. I did say to Alex yesterday that he could include a television show if he wanted because we were making him watch a television show.
Mhm.
So, top four movies. You can throw a TV show in there if you want.
So I struggle with my current favorite. Like
Hmm.
I get hooked on like so my top four that I put together off the top of my head is they're four very recent movies. I do have a lot of classics that I really like, but I don't want to say that they've fallen out of favor. But like I struggle to think of like, man, what's like my favorite movies? But so
Yeah.
I just to like to kind of
Like a tasting of what
preamble
you
that.
like. We won't hold you to
Yeah,
this. My movies change too.
right. Like four movies currently that I will hype up to all my friends, or I will always watch if I happen to come across them. The Big Short
Oh,
is
yeah.
one of my. Despite the fact that it's incredibly crushing, depressing, it's also based on real life and real events. I think it's an incredibly entertaining movie. I think the cast was unbelievable, but we don't need to go into reasons. But I love The Big Short. Big fan of The Big Short. Um,
Yeah.
Whiplash, one of my recent favorites as well.
Wow. Yeah.
I
I forgot about that
I'm
one.
a big fan of music growing up. I
Mhm.
was never massively talented, but I did a lot of choirs and I played in really really bad bands in high school. And I don't know if it was just say it's Oscar bait, say it's whatever. I liked Whiplash a lot. J.K. Simmons just
He
unbelievable,
killed it in that. I feel like that was when we
unbelievable.
got a like a he's always been a character actor, he's always been around, but I feel like Whiplash really put him in front of people, and then they started to realize like, "Oh my god, half of those voices in those cartoons are him." He's always the guy he was the oh god, who's the press guy in Spider-Man?
J. Jonah Jameson. Yep.
Get me more photos of Spider-Man, like,
Exactly. He
he's
was
so
the
good in
the
everything.
yellow the yellow M&M in the M&M commercials. It's just he pops and like he's in Oz as like a neo-Nazi
Mhm. Mhm.
white supremacist and all that. But I
Oh.
thought I remember watching Whiplash. I was like, holy, like this movie kicks ass.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just, and I like Damien Chazelle, I believe, is the director.
Mhm.
I like his work a lot. Um, I like Whiplash. Whiplash is again. I'll put that on if I see it on Netflix. It's like, well, guess I'm watching Whiplash.
So we're doing it.
Another one, Spotlight.
Oh,
Another
yeah.
depressing, based on real events, real crushing events. But I don't know if it's just that kind of investigative journalist type of thing.
Mhm.
Again, the cast is incredible.
Really
Um,
incredible.
I thought just everything about the movie is just a great movie made that I hate that it even exists,
Mhm.
because it's so crushing, about like the content that it covers and
Yeah, the
everything like
content is
that.
it's in one hand crushing and in the other hand kind of uplifting because here's this group of people that against all of these odds that the movie shows us still manages to get this to light, and there's kind of a like, oh, there's a hope in that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very good movie. I mean, obviously it's a good movie. It won Best
The
Picture, I
one
believe. Um,
yeah.
but I'm not breaking any barriers here. But
How
uh,
controversial and brave.
right, it's it's just it's a very good movie.
Yeah.
Lastly, my last one might be a little bit of a cop out again, just because it's phenomenal and it's knowing who we associate with and like your guess. It's most likely I don't. It might even be on their list. But goddamn, Fury Road was so good. Fury Road, such a god. That movie blew my mind.
Oh my god, yeah, you know what? You are actually the first guest to say Fury Road in
Nailed
your
it.
top 4, and, like, I can hear the guests before you going,
Why didn't I think of that?
I just saw the trailer yesterday for, Furiosa,
Yep.
which again is just like, if you don't get a frisé, if your hair on your arms don't stand up, I don't know what's wrong with you because Miller does this stuff with cinematography and with storytelling and costuming and acting that just makes you, like, excited about movies again.
Yeah. It. I can't wait for Furiosa. I think there's a lot of discourse given that again, just
Yeah.
no one can enjoy anything because people saw the trailer for Furiosa and like, well, what's with all the CGI? And it's like I get it, because Fury Road had so much practical effects and they minimized the use of CGI so much, if any.
Yeah.
That maybe if there's CGI in this one, it's going to be kind of a letdown. And the trailer looked weird,
Hmm.
so that completely kills it for you. Come on, man! Like the trailer kicked ass.
I didn't think it looked weird. First of all, trailers are made often before a film is finalized, so they're being made in post-production, so, like, it's not entirely indicative of what you're going to wind up seeing, both good
Yeah,
and bad.
like I think the only thing I'm genuinely bummed about is that Charlize Theron's not reprising the role, but I get
Mhm.
it if it's a younger
Gotta be a
version.
younger actress.
Movie. I don't know the first thing about making movies, so I
Mhm.
imagine there's 11 million things that went into that decision. I do like Anya Taylor-Joy. I think she's great. I'm still like I'm pumped. I'm excited to see
Oh, yeah.
unhinged Chris Helmsworth.
I
Like
know!
it's it looks. I can't wait. I don't care if the trailer quote looked weird. I'm
Yeah.
psyched. I can't wait.
I do have to say that for Anna Taylor-Joy, I wanna ask, like, was it rough just being on a desert for the last 2 movies that you did? Like, she's doing the next Dune movie as well, and then she's doing Furiosa, she's just like sand on
Yeah,
sand on sand. Like, you
yeah.
must have great moisturizer.
I can't even imagine going through those kinds of shoots, like especially back to back. Um,
Yeah.
and like I have no idea how movies work, but like because she's been in a bunch lately, so and she's been in
Mhm.
like whether it was Queen's Gambit, which was like peak pandemic. Once that was like the big thing after Tiger King, during pandemic was
Oh
did
god,
you
yeah.
watch Queen's Gambit? I'm in the strange camp of I very much, if there's one thing that a positive that came out of COVID and lockdown and stuff, I very much like watching movies at home.
Oh my god, me
Not a big,
too.
not a big theater goer. I don't like being around people. I don't like, obviously the big screen and the big sound system is great, but I prefer the comfort of my own home. I prefer to be able to lounge on my couch and like if I gotta pee, I can pause it, and I don't have to worry about someone else talking and ruining my experience and potentially getting
Mhm.
into a fight, telling them to please, please, God, shut up. This cost
Oh,
me like $30 to sit here right now.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
the fact that it's taking a lot longer again for movies to hit streaming, if at all,
it's
is
rough.
kind of a bummer. Like, I'm really excited. I
Mm,
want to watch Dune 2 really bad, but
mhm.
I have
Oh,
no
they're
interest
taking
in
a
going
hold.
to a theater.
Every time I go to a theater, I wind up with a migraine now too. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's this, like, I'm allergic to the seats or it's too loud. So it's like, oh god.
Yeah, it's just if there's one thing that came out of that, it's like, man, I don't ever want to go back to the theater. It's just not for me. But it
Oh.
unfortunately means that I'm perpetually behind. So
Mhm.
all the all the memes and all the everything, all the discussion about Dune 2, I have to wait until it hits streaming. I have to wait, and I'm gonna have to do the same for for Furiosa.
Well, you can get that Dune popcorn bucket and wait at home. Wait at home, you know?
I'll keep you entertained for a long time.
For a long
Um,
time, at least until you need to go to the ER.
I will say, Christ, almost stuck that by me. Because I tell people like the last movie I saw right before everything ended was 1917 in the theaters,
Oh,
and
wow, okay.
that could also be on my list.
That's
God,
not a bad choice.
1917,
Yeah, that's
unbelievable
a good
movie,
theater choice as well for your sound system and your visuals.
so good, unbelievable movie. And then I up until 2 months ago, I hadn't seen a movie in theaters since, and then my friend Colin, big good friend of OMV,
Mhm.
had his girlfriend threw a birthday party for him at the movie, rented out a movie theater, and we watched
Oh,
True Romance,
Brett talked about
which
that,
was
yes.
yeah fantastic. I wound up loving the movie,
It's one
and it
of
was
my
great because
favorites.
we had the theater like to ourselves, so it was
Mhm,
maybe 15 of us, and we could all just kind of sit wherever. So like myself, I could kind of distance myself, and
mhm,
it was a good time, and it was like, okay, maybe theaters aren't so bad, but under a very controlled environment.
mhm. Yeah, no, that's Jared, rented out a movie theater and he showed us God, I'm gonna forget the name of it, and I feel terrible about it. It's, like, such an impressive movie that's, like, if you're into movies, you should watch this movie, like, The Night of the Hunter. It was Night of the Hunter, and I had never heard of it. I feel so much better as a like, film critic, filmmaker, film everything that I have seen it, and it's like, you would never know to watch this, and we got to rent
Right.
out the theater. It was kind of the pandemic period too as well, so with the theater to ourselves, we're still all wearing masks and kind of sitting away from each other.
Yep.
It was what we needed emotionally at the time, to be completely honest, but for me, like, I I I wanna be at home. I can
Yeah.
smoke, I can eat, I can pet a cat if I need to. If it's 3.5 hours long, which they damn well are now, I can take, like, a break and go walk around, do
Yep.
arm circles, like
Or even, God, I didn't even factor that in. My attention span is so shit these days.
Mhm,
It's difficult. Like, all me and my wife will go to queue up a movie and be like, oh my God, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. Like, come on. And maybe that's just me being incredibly spoiled because we have so much media to
mhm,
consume these days, and people aren't just jamming it into 90-minute features anymore. But it can be difficult. It took us six 4 sessions to watch Justice League, the Snyder cut, the
yeah,
like
though.
5 hour one or whatever, and it's
It's like a
just
television show. It should be 5 episodes.
right. Yeah, it's just it can be taxing sometimes. So it is
Yeah,
nice that I can, when I'm at home, I can pause it. I can,
mhm.
okay, I need to go to bed or something.
Oh. We've been talking about the like difficultness of filming a certain set, like how hard it must be to be doing Dune 2 and then Furioso. And I wanted to point out, so we're talking about just the first movie, Lord of the Rings, or Fellowship of the Ring. There's of course the Two Towers and the Return of the King. This one and the other ones were all filmed simultaneous. They were a back to back to back to back to back to back, three backs were back to each other. And it lasted 274 days across 16 months. That is apparently the exact amount of time that the principal shooting of Apocalypse Now took,
Good Lord.
because they wanted it to be continuous. They didn't want to like have anybody age.
Right. Which makes sense. And given in my like 10 minutes of research that I did into actual Lord of the Rings before this, I was like, okay, so they were like successive years. It wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
5 years in between each movie that we see. We Stranger Things. The kids are the kids are adults now.
Adults now.
And there's
Yes.
still one more season.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was 2001, 2, and 3.
right. Yep. And they did the same thing with The Hobbit, if I recall. I
I
don't
got that
remember.
right here. The Hobbit is 2012, 2013, 2014. Yeah, they
Right.
just back to back to back them. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense though when you're doing something like this.
It's great for the fans too, because you don't have to wait crazy amounts of time. Like, I mean, we're doing right now with Furiosa, because Fury Road was, I don't even remember when
Mhm.
that was, but
As an Attack on Titan fan, I feel like, wait, you don't even know what waiting
right.
is.
Exactly. I've been waiting for the third season of One Punch Man for like 4 years. It feels like, it's
Oh.
so maybe we're just spoiled these days, but that does feel like it would have been massive for the fan base,
Mhm.
at least at
So,
the time.
yeah, and we're talking about a movie. Massive amount of work has gone into this. A massive amount of forethought has gone into this, and that bears the question: why haven't you seen it?
Yeah, so I was trying to put that down into words. I have a notepad open that's
Yeah.
titled quote, "So why the fuck haven't I watched Lord of the Rings?" And I was like trying to put it together, and it comes down to like a couple different things. Obviously, it was 2001, so I was 15 at the time.
Oh,
I was
okay. Yeah,
I was
yeah,
born in I was born in 86. Did I do that math right? Yeah, 15.
yeah.
15?
I
Yeah.
thought I was. Yeah, no. So we're almost exactly the same age, and I was like, I was how old? I didn't know how old I was when it came out. Oh, great, bless my heart.
So I was in those awful years, trying to figure out what I like, what I'm into, trying to figure out who I am. Just a miserable piece of shit.
Yeah,
And
teenage years. I can
they call them
relate.
the blunder years for a reason, and I was the king of blunder years. 2001. The first note I have was it was 2001, and I couldn't be bothered by anything that wasn't Green Day, Eminem, or Limp Bizkit, which which is pretty painfully true. Um,
What if you could name 3 things that let you know what year it is? I know now.
yeah, and it 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 was one of those things where I was 15. I hadn't started working yet, so I didn't have money. I didn't have a car. Getting to the movies, I relied on my parents and stuff. So it's pretty much, it wasn't a big deal to me. Obviously, the internet wasn't huge at that point, so there wasn't a ton of like discussion. None of my friends were really into it either.
Mhm,
Most of
mhm.
my friends were big into like Star Wars. Fast and the Furious had just come out. I don't know if it was before or
Oh,
after, but Fast and Furious was that year. So
yeah.
like I was big into cars at that point. It just never really came on my radar
Mhm.
when it first came out. My girlfriend at the time was a Harry Potter person, so Sorcerer's Stone came out that year. That was the kind of fantasy that we were interested in.
Very right. Like there was a either or with that as well, because I was very much into Lord of the Rings. My sister was super into Lord of the Rings, and I had this like obstinate I'm not gonna Harry Potter for the longest time. Like I just
Yeah,
refused to engage with that material. I went to England and wound up reading all the books at once because it felt like, well, I'm in Rome, I might as well. And I wound up enjoying it, but I totally get what you're saying. Like as a teenager, I couldn't be bothered.
yeah. Yep. It just never interested me. And I don't now, and I like to think I'm remembering correctly. There could be some reversionist nonsense in my head. I don't ever remember being like, Lord of the Rings is for losers. Lord of the Rings is for dorks. I don't care about wizards. I'm cool. I like Green Day. I
Mm-hmm.
never really I don't recall myself, and I don't think anyone that I went to high school with is going to listen to this. To be honest, I don't really talk to many people that I graduated with, but I like to think that no one's going to call me a liar. But I don't ever remember it being like a spiteful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't like an intentional until
Hmm.
until 2006, because there was a very specific time in my life in 2006 that lended to me never watching Lord of the Rings. And that was when I got a new job. My first summer at local theme park had ended,
Mm-hmm.
so it was time to uh, get more money because it was a seasonal job. And I got a job at a bookstore, and they needed help in the receiving department. The receiving manager was a big Lord of the Rings fan, huge, massive Lord of the Rings fan. He loved World of Warcraft. He would all night benders playing WoW. He'd be late to work all the time.
Yeah, it ruined a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, yep. I always say that like WoW and Magic the Gathering are two things that I have willfully abstained from because I know it will consume me. Um,
Ruined. I
yeah.
failed. I almost failed high school because of Diablo, the online
Yep.
game.
Yep.
I know to stay the fuck away from WoW. Diablo is not nearly as good as WoW. I'm not doing it.
So I worked in the receiving department with this guy, and the whole he's trying to get a feel for his new employee or whatever.
Mhm.
Couple weeks on the job, it was me, the manager, and this one other guy, and we're just talking whatever. And Lord of the Rings comes up, and they're discussing it, and they're talking about Lord of the Rings, and they turn to me and they, what did I think about something? I don't know. And I said, I haven't seen it. And the look that I got, the shock and just complete disbelief in the manager's face. Couldn't believe it. Unfathomable that I had never seen Lord of the Rings. And then the guy that we worked with was like, wait, what did he say? And the manager said, I will never forget it. The manager said, oh, JR was just telling us about how he's uncultured and has never seen Lord of the Rings. And I was like, okay, fuck Lord of the Rings, dude. I'm
You
never
don't
fucking watching this shit.
we don't know each other enough yet for that to be a jest. That's just you being an asshole. You're also in a
Yeah.
position of power, Mr. Manager. Like,
Yeah. And
oh,
it just, I was new to the job. I was trying to I was seasonal too, so I was desperately trying to show that I'm good enough. Like, please don't fire me after Christmas. And it just, you know, any other time you could just brush it off, haha, whatever. I've never seen Lord of the Rings. Okay, whatever, dude. Um, but it was just the wrong thing at the wrong time. It just needled into my brain, and I was like, nope, nope, I don't care. I'm not
yeah,
watching it. I don't care. I do not care about Lord of the Rings. If it's to spite this man for the rest of time, I'll
yeah,
never watch Lord of the Rings. I guess that makes me uncultured.
yeah.
Um,
You're not the first guest to mention this, though, that people have skipped things because of such a deep personal experience with an individual who proselytized it that they couldn't handle it.
yeah, yep. And then gradually, I will admit, especially recently, and that this episode, you reaching out to me was such a oh fuck yeah, dude, because not only I get to flex the podcasting muscles again, which is
Yeah.
fun because I've been out of it for a couple years now, but um, I've been interested in watching it. I it because it pops up on all the streaming services, and it's something that intrigues me. I like fantasy is something I've been getting more and more into lately, especially now that D&D is so prevalent. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been playing with my friends for years now.
Awesome.
It's great, and the only thing really stopping me is just the runtime. It's like, man, I don't have time right now. It's just I don't know. I'd rather watch anime, or I'd rather read or play video games or whatever.
Mhm.
whatever excuse you could slot in for any given day, I would
Mm-hmm.
come up with one. But more and more lately, it's like, I should watch Lord of the Rings. Like, why not? Like, everyone obviously loves them. And then recently, I picked up The Hobbit, the book, because
Mm-hmm.
I've never read The Hobbit. I read it for a book report back in like sixth grade, but I read
Oh,
every like fifth page
yeah.
because I
We all
waited
know
until
how
like
we do it.
the night
Yep.
before it was due. So I didn't retain a single thing.
Of
Um,
course.
but I recently read The Hobbit. I enjoyed it. It was a fun book. Uh, and then literally like 2 days after I started reading The Hobbit, you hit me up to be like, I heard you'd never seen Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
um, so it's
It's
a great excuse. It's something that I've been thinking about diving into, and this gives me the perfect reason to just bite the bullet.
just a little push. I will tell you, you were put upon the altar by Alex.
He admitted to that too, because I busted out my microphone from storage and was getting everything plugged in to make sure that it still worked, and I couldn't find my pop shield. Luckily, I was able to get it put together,
Nice.
and I sent a picture of it to Alex and Brett, just saying, been a minute. And Alex immediately was like, "I will admit, I sold you out." I thanked him for it though, because not only was I psyched and honored to even be asked to
Mhm.
come on, um,
Huh.
but it's just fun. It gives me a reason to finally check this off my list. I'm sure
Mhm.
my wife will watch it with me as well, because I think she's been itching to see. I think she's already seen it, but she wants to watch it again. So gives us an excuse to sit down and have a movie night. So I'm excited.
It's so funny because you talk about your manager's response to it, and I've seen that response a lot, but I don't understand that response because my response is kind of what we're experiencing right now. If I find somebody who hasn't seen something I truly adore, I'm like a pig who's found a truffle. I'm like, we're gonna watch it together. Or you're gonna have the best time ever. I'm like so hyped for you to be able to do this thing now. I'm like almost jealous that I don't have a little amnesia so I could do it too, you know?
I was thinking that exact same thing when
Yeah.
you talking to Alex earlier today about what you're having him watch.
I know.
I was jealous because he gets to experience that for the first
I
time.
know.
And like that, I'm already biased because I love Last of Us. I
Yeah.
love the game. I
Yeah.
even like the second game, which is apparently a pretty divisive thing to say these
Hot
days.
take. Hot
I know,
take.
unbelievable that I enjoyed the second game, and I can also admit that the game definitely wasn't perfect and has faults. But I
What?
still like the
Believe.
right? Can you fucking believe it? What a
Cut
brave
his mic
soul I am.
now.
And then the show blew me away.
Oh my
Fucking
god.
I'm sorry if cursing is
Oh, no, you curse as hell as oh, yeah, I
okay.
can't handle it.
Dope.
They
Dope.
you guys told me on the episode for, Wonder Woman, we can't curse for the first 5 minutes. All 3 of us got so scared, we set a timer because 'cause we're that bad about not cursing.
Yeah, we Alex, we tried. We tried to rein it in because I had a potty mouth.
Ah, no,
And
curse away. Curse on, motherfucker.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, Jared almost recorded something to be played for you before you watched Lord of the Rings. He's so excited for you. It's in his top 4. I like all and when we looked at this, there's no way I'm gonna ask you to watch all 3 of them. That would be like telling Alex he had to watch the entire Last of Us series. I hope he likes the episode he watches
Yep.
and goes further in because he enjoys it. Obviously, you're gonna watch the first one and then you'll probably watch the rest of them. It is there are the top 10 best ranked movies on IMDb to date. This one is number 9. The last one is number 7. Two
Right.
Towers doesn't get as much love, even though it does have the Battle of Helm's Deep in it, which is like really, really impressive. And you're seeing the beginning of Massive, the software that gets used to control hordes and crowds and to give each
Mhm.
one their own individual ideas. These are the first films to really kind of use those. So it is such a joyous thing for people who are into FX to get to see this. But I know many people who are excited for you and wish that they could kind of have a little amnesia and go and watch this for the first time. My husband is hyped because I said I'm going to watch it again, and I don't tend to watch these movies because they're so long. And he's like, "We're really gonna do it. We're gonna watch it again." Yes. So.
And it's also like you have the difficult task, especially with this show, of
Mhm.
telling someone to watch a thing, but not you have to toe that line of
Mhm.
because we all have that friend. I did this to my wife literally last weekend, and I had to try and tell myself to please shut up because you're gonna ruin this. Because we were just doing the whole like scrolling through uh, Hulu looking for something to watch or whatever, and High Fidelity was there, and I was like, "Oh God, I love High Fidelity." And I turned to my wife, I was like, "You ever see High Fidelity?" And she's like, "No, I don't think so." And I was like, "What?" Like I was
Oh.
like shocked with myself. Like, how could I have never shown her High Fidelity? I'm such a
Mhm.
failure. And I was like, I asked her like 4 times, like, "You've never seen High Fidelity?" And I could see her getting annoyed with me to the point where it's like, I don't know if I want to watch High Fidelity if you don't shut your fucking mouth. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
and, like towing that line of like being really excited about something and trying to hype it up to your friends, but not pushing the boundaries so they get annoyed. And it's like, you've kind of overplayed this and I don't want to now.
Yeah.
Which also happened to me with Lord of the Rings. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man, the more you tell me to watch it, the more I don't want to watch it.
It's so funny how that, like, yeah, that's exactly how I responded to Harry Potter. It's this, like, weird, like, line in the sand where, like, "Everybody likes it? Well, not me."
Yeah,
And you're like, "Why?" I'm like, "I don't know," because they're really pushy about it. Instead of just being like, "Come join us," they're like, "Ooh, you're an outsider. Maybe if you watch it, you can come join us." And I'm like, "I don't even wanna join you, so fuck yeah."
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that like elitist, but also just I had negative experiences with my friends just hyping me up and borderline making me feel bad. Not me specifically, but like just as an example, I think we've all had that where you know a friend might just overhype. When I was called uncultured, it's just okay. Well, now I just don't want to. I don't
Yeah.
want to. You've overstepped. You've pushed this too hard. I'm not interested. Like maybe if you came on a like just pump the brakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's you've done I think a great job with this show of like when you messaged me, it was just I heard you hadn't seen Lord of the Rings. Like and there's never been any it wasn't, "Hey, would you be interested?" Because I can't believe you haven't seen Lord of the
You
Rings. Like,
fucking
how have you never seen Lord? It was none of that. It was
yeah.
none
Do
of
you
that
wanna
at
stop
all.
being a loser and come on the show?
I heard you're a fucking idiot. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's get
I
you cultured.
I wanted to record you so that my friends could point at this loser who hasn't seen the movie. No. You're right, like, that happens to me too because I've seen so many movies that whenever somebody finds a movie that I haven't seen, there's a billion movies this happens. They get so up in my face that they start to be like, "I thought you were, like, a film person," and you're like, "I'm sorry, I didn't see that stupid ass I'm never
Yeah,
seeing that stupid ass movie now. Would you fuck out of my face." Like, you get
exactly. Yeah.
so it's like I'm suddenly in a Mammoth play when this happens.
it's
It's like Glenn
it's
Gary, Glenn Ross. You know what the name of the movie is? The name of the movie is "Fuck You," that's what it is.
also a good movie.
Yeah, great movie.
But and it's so easy to fall into that. Like I said, I literally was falling into that trap with my wife last weekend. It's so easy to just enter that headspace of like, I can't believe you haven't fucking seen this. Like, what
Mhm.
is your problem?
And another thing is when you're trying to tell someone to watch a movie, you kinda have to walk the line of how do you hype it without spoiling it?
Yeah,
I mean, when I do movie reviews, I often don't even really tell you the plot of the movie. I just kinda tell you, like, what you're gonna get, what's exciting about it, what the feels are for it, because sometimes you can ruin the movie by even just saying what the plot is. So it's like, "Oh, how do I get you in here?" What I've been doing for guests is I've been telling them, like, little moments or scenes to look for where something strange or hilarious is happening to the actor, just because you can kinda ground yourself, like, "Look for this scene. If you're looking for this scene, you've made it here, and there's a couple going on." With this one, I'm not sure if I wanna do that because it's such a fantasy world, and I don't want you to constantly be brought out by thinking about what's happening to the actor unless you feel like that wouldn't bother you.
I don't think it would. Like, it's
Okay.
I think it would make it fun. I obviously
Awesome.
I expect the movie to be good.
Yeah.
I'm not going into this to hate watch it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch it. Like I said, it gives me a reason to sit down and have a movie night with my wife. But like, I'm okay with a little bit of homework. I feel like I'd already be kind of doing that, looking for. I'm gonna look for the Sean Bean meme of, I can't remember
Yes.
the actual meme itself, but like we've all seen it a million times. I'm gonna be
Mhm.
looking for the Gandalf for the "You shall not." I don't even know when that happens. Is that in the third movie? When does he say "You shall not pass"? I don't know.
It is in Fellowship. You are gonna get the Balrog scene.
Nice.
Fantastic.
That's
So there's
exciting.
gonna be scenes that's this is also interesting. This is like when I watched Wizard of Oz where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I know this, I know that," but it'll put it in the context. Uh, I think one of the most interesting facts about the movie is, Christopher Lee, who played Saruman. Like, he read The Lord of the Rings once a year until his death in 2015 and had done so since the year it was published. He was the only member of the cast and crew to have actually met J.R.R. Tolkien. And so they would bring him in for like doing monster makeup and he was like officially in there helping them like, oh, I think this monster would have looked a little bit more like this because it's described this way.
That's I'm both shocking and not shocking at all. Knowing Christopher,
Yeah.
not that I know Christopher Lee personally, but knowing what I know about him, that's also one of the coolest flexes that you could possibly have, like on set. To be able to say like I know the author personally. That's really neat. And also just I do consider myself a reader. I'm not the type of like voracious reader who chews through 70 books a
Mhm.
year, but I do try to keep myself reading actively. And even getting myself to read even some of my favorite books a second or a third time is like, I've already read it. I'd rather read something
Mhm.
new. So I think that speaks a lot to the quality of the book.
Oh,
If someone like Christopher Lee is reading it literally every year, and then he gets to
yeah.
be in the movie.
Yeah, and the he was actually the first person cast for the movie. They had always known that they were going to include him in on this, and to not do so would be detrimental.
Egregious.
Egregiously incorrect. It was almost like, you know, how people will watch, Friends or a comfort show over and over. This was Christopher Lee's comfort show.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's that wholesome shit that like keeps me
Mhm.
going. That
Abs this
that kind of stuff.
Like, you're watching the movie and he steps on scene and you just know this is, like, the culmination of cool for this guy, and
Yeah.
it's so exciting to get to see that.
A man who's had such a storied career to begin
I
with.
know,
Yeah.
know. It is a joy. Other things I would tell you to look for in the beginning, the first time that you see Gandalf, he's, like, walking into Bilbo's hobbit hole. I've been to Hobbiton. It's really cool. It's a wonderful location. They built all these different size sets so that everybody looks different sizes. Ian McKellen will, smack his head against a beam because he's so tall. That was not in the script. He just did it, and they ran with it, and they used that take. So everybody's like, "Really? Oh, good acting." Like, no, he really fucking clocked himself.
That's those are phenomenal. The little tidbits like that, and everyone turns into the everyone who's seen it and they're watching it like with someone who hasn't seen it, they turn into Leo DiCaprio and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like snapping and pointing at the TV like, "Did you know that's actually like," because we all can't help it. We can't help it.
Can't
You
help
you
it.
have to like, and it's one of those facts like you just need to know it.
It's super There's actually so many of these interesting little facts like that. I'm gonna only give you 5 of them, just because, like, this movie is so well loved, and there was so you know, it's recorded recently, so there's a lot of, people remember what happened on set, and they can
Right,
still
right.
talk about it, and they
Yeah.
interview them so often, you can only ask them so many questions, so they keep telling different stories, and, like, it was clearly such a passion for everyone who was involved. I mean, the entire Fellowship crew all got, an Elvish 9 tattooed on their ankle,
Mm.
as a, like, you know, we're all part of this group together. Peter Jackson got a 10 on his ankle, an Elvish 10, to be included in. So, like, there was such a they even so they all learned how to surf because they were in New Zealand and they would go surfing pretty much whenever they possibly could, except that one time Viggo Mortensen got like fucked up when they were surfing, and the whole left side of his face is bruised as a result of it. But they were filming the Mines of Moria scene, so the scene with the Balrog. So they're in the Mines of Moria with Aragorn, and you will notice you are only going to see him from one side
Hmm.
in that entire scene, and that's because the other side of his face way messed up from surfing
From a
earlier that
surfing
day.
incident. Amazing.
And Peter Jackson's like, we can make it work. Just don't look at me.
I can't even imagine the type of camaraderie and I get brotherhood, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
that entire crew, especially filming all three movies back to back. Because usually movie shoots are like, uh, oh, this is shot in 37 days successive or whatever. You said this was something like 200 something. Like
174 days consecutive.
that's
Well, among 16
crazy.
months, I guess.
I
Yeah.
don't know a ton about movies, but that feels like a very long shoot.
And you kinda have to have, like, a sense of humor with each other, like, a little kinda jabbing rapport. Like,
Yeah.
there's a scene where, again, Viggo is supposed to be throwing an apple to Billy Boyd. This is the second breakfast scene. I'm sure you've seen the memes for second breakfast.
Is that with the tomatoes? Where the guy's eating
Um,
tomato, or is that Hobbit? I've heard about the tomato eating scene. Isn't that Lord of the
it's not,
Rings?
I don't think it's the tomato, I think that's in the Hobbit one.
Okay,
I
yeah,
will
okay,
double check.
disregard then.
No, yeah, this one they're talking about wanting to have breakfast, and he throws him an apple, and the scene took 16 takes because he kept, like, joyously throwing it at Billy. It's like pegging him with apples, and you're like, "Catch it, bitch, catch it, come on, catch it."
This costs millions of dollars, but I'm having fun. Whatever.
Fucking we're having a time. Well, like, so many things were changed in the script. They were constantly rewriting the script while they were doing it to fit the actors themselves because they were so involved. They were having so much fun with their characters and becoming them that they were like, "You know what? Let's switch it here a little. Let's have them play a little here. Let's have them try a little of this here."
Hmm.
It's impressive for something that is based on such a, like, big big piece of literature where no one would ever say, like, "You can't really change this. I will let you know you don't get Tom Bombadil," and everybody gets mad about that, but I don't like Tom Bombadil, so I'm fine with that. But, like, you gotta make little changes here and there, and what they brought in, I thought really added to the world more than took away, but I might not be as cultured as the manager from your job.
Yeah, yeah. Especially having I've never read the books. I've read The Hobbit now, but I've never read Lord of the Rings. I sold them for years working at a bookstore. I've seen the
Mhm.
dozens and dozens of special edition printings that they put out, and but I've never read them, so I have no baseline to compare them to. Well, that's not how it's supposed to happen, especially according to the book.
That's the way to do it. You should always watch the media first and then read the book second.
Right,
That's how I've done Game of Thrones, and I've been happy because now I have more Game of Thrones, just different.
right. Yeah, I most of the time, especially with the way things are these days, like especially and having worked in a bookstore, a lot of the times I read the book first and then the movie will come out.
Mhm.
But for the most part, like I get that sometimes stuff's different.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
There's going to be the egregious examples of like Watchmen was one of the most divisive
Mhm,
endings. You can't.
mhm.
I get that they did change the ending, but like you really want a giant squid falling on New York? I don't know. I was fine with Dr. Manhattan
I
bombs.
was very fine with that. For me, that was not my favorite part of the comic book,
Right.
and I'm glad that they fixed that.
Yeah. Yep. It's
Yeah.
again, getting back to like early discussions that we had, the fandoms and Alan Moore
Yeah.
can do no wrong, and Watchmen was a literal perfect. How could you mess with any? I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just a bad comic book fan, but I thought I was fine with changing it to Doctor Manhattan bombs. But
I just feel like if you're gonna make it into a movie, change something a little bit about it. Give me something different. I don't I if it is just the comic, then like you said about the video game with Last of Us, like, then I'll just go consume the original media the way it was created if you're not gonna add anything to it.
yeah,
Going back to I have 2 more facts for you.
hit
I'll
me.
give you the short one first. My favorite this is my favorite cute fact and then my favorite ridiculous fact. My favorite cute fact is Gimli is Jonathan Rhys Davis. We know this man, great actor. He plays the smallest character. He's 6'1". He's the
He's a big
tallest
guy.
actor.
He's a
He's
big
the biggest of them all.
because he was in Last Crusade, right?
Yep.
Or
Yes.
was he in all three of them? I can't, but I know he's in Indiana Jones. He's a big guy.
Yeah. He's a big guy. Yeah, I think he's in all three of them. I remember him being in Raiders as well because he's talking to him when the monkey eats
The
that
bad
poison fig.
dates. Yep.
The dates, yeah,
Yep.
bad dates. Yes. And my favorite ridiculous fact is Sean Bean, amazing actor,
Yep.
completely afraid of flying, will not fly, will not get into a helicopter, will not get onto a plane. So when they're doing the scenes where they're crossing a mountain, they're on a literal snowy mountaintop, and they helicoptered up the actors every day. Unwilling to get into the helicopter, Sean Bean would get dressed in his full outfit and climb the mountain, arrive at the time of shooting sweaty but ready.
Unbelievable. That is some next level terror, and which I relate to because I am also terrified of flying. I don't think quite to that extent. I think that that is some devotion to to fear. I guess I don't know how to
Yeah.
put it, but that is. And then he could have easily. He's like, I'm Sean Bean. I probably don't even need this, but like he was clearly devoted to making the movie.
Mhm.
I'm going to hike this
Making it
mountain.
work.
I'm making this. Yeah, like
It was like a 2-hour hike each day, each
good
way,
lord. I don't even want to do
and
that
in costume.
when I'm ready and in the proper attire and mentally there. Not even because he has to hike and then he has to go to work.
Mhm.
And then he has
Mhm.
to hike back and do it again. I don't even want to go on a hike on my day off.
Yeah,
It's
right? The saving grace is that it must have put him emotionally in the exact place he needed for that scene, because
right.
they were supposed to have just been climbing, and he's the only one, and the cast would fly over him with the helicopter and look down and be like, "There's Sean doing his thing."
God, that is
Bless his heart.
yeah. I like Sean Bean a lot, and it's one of those the gag of how many times is he gonna die, and he's very good as a bad guy, but he's my favorite character in Game of Thrones, which was
Yes.
also very
Yes.
shocking watching the first season of that. I was like, wow, that was they I was like, someone's
Mhm.
gonna step in. This isn't actually gonna happen.
An adult will stop this. An adult will come and save us, right? Like, because and that's why Game of Thrones was so interesting as a television show, because everything you've watched until then, it'd be like, movies about World War II, like, "I
Right.
wonder who wins," or like, "Obviously someone's gonna stop this horrible thing," and Game of Thrones
Nope.
was like, "No,
They
they're
are
not."
absolutely not. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of to get to work. Initially,
Mhm.
like when you hit me up about watching Lord of the Rings, I was like, I'm gonna watch it fucking tonight. Like I didn't understand the format of the show.
Oh god, I was so worried Alex was gonna watch too. So I'm always worried I never explain it
But
correctly.
we got there. I held off.
Mhm.
There's actually a moment of panic today. I was sitting down, like getting ready, and my wife comes in. She's like, "Weren't you supposed to watch it?" And I was like, "No, no, that's that's the beauty of it."
I often ask guests, and this is in the last wrap up. We're wrapping up right now. I ask, is there something that you're excited to possibly have in there, and something that you're like a little worried might be in there?
I'm excited. I like Ian McKellen a lot. In my
Mhm.
age or whatever, having come to really appreciate actors who've just kind of done it all. Ian McKellen is obviously Magneto
Mhm.
when I was a kid, like not kid, but like
Mhm.
teenager growing up and stuff. He's just perfect in that
Mhm.
role. Elijah Wood
Mhm.
never really did it for me. So like I don't want to say that was part of me never
Mm.
wanting to watch it, but it's like Elijah Wood, he's starring in this. I don't really care about Elijah Wood.
Just pretend it's Daniel Radcliffe.
That's actually a good idea. And then the rest of the
It'll be
cast,
fine.
besides like
It'll be
Sean
fine.
Bean, I don't really know, or at least at the time, I didn't really know many of them. So it's
Mhm.
never really just been,
Mhm.
you know, like the star-studded cast, the Glass
Yeah.
Onion cast that we're used to, or
Ah,
Knives Out, or
yeah,
all the.
yeah,
Oh, God, can you believe they got this
yeah.
cast put together? How did they manage this? I'm sure there's someone screaming at
Yeah,
their
veritable
radio
who's
or
who.
phone right now saying, "How can you say that this cast isn't?" But like to me, at least at the time when it came out, it wasn't.
At the time, absolutely no, like, people at the time, fantasy was so disregarded that people made fun of actors for making these choices. I know the actor who plays Jaime Lannister, he didn't tell anybody he was in Game of Thrones for like the first year because he was while he was filming because he was afraid like they wouldn't cast him in anything else. His friends were going to make fun of him. So like Viggo Mortensen didn't want to take this role. He thought it would be the death to his career. His 11-year-old son was like, "Are you a fucking idiot? This is epic. This is an epic book," and pushed him into doing it. So, like, no, these people were not veritable who's who. They were just trying to put together a cast, and they really lucked out. I mean, Billy Boyd, I love him to death, but he wasn't even in, what's the one where the Lost. He wasn't in Lost yet. Oh, no, wait, it's the other one that not Billy Boyd. It's the other Hobbit that there's always with him. Anyway, I'll put it in the face. I'll put it at the end. But yeah, they weren't entirely
And
anybody yet.
I actually did have it in my notes too. Where was it? My note is this is verbatim. It says,
One note.
IDK,
One
I
note.
fucking hated Orlando Bloom at the time. I have no valid reason for this.
Oh, no. So I'll give you a damn good valid reason. Motherfucker wasn't even out of acting school. 2 days before graduation, he lands this role. He is not that good of an actor. How dare he? He did not do his dime.
It should have been me.
But, you know, if you wanted to cast someone for, like, really effeminate elf dude,
Yeah.
all right, you
Yep. It
got
was
me.
like, because then like Pirates came out, and he was, in my opinion, he
Mhm.
was always kind of the weakest point of the Pirates movies. It's just his character just annoyed me. Just give me more Davy Jones
I do.
and Pirates sword fight,
Yeah.
whatever. But like it's just like whatever. Oh, like Orlando Bloom's in it, whatever, dude. I just don't care.
So, any last words before we wrap up for part 1? Send you to go watch it.
Nothing groundbreaking. I'm excited. I it gives me an
Mhm.
excuse to sit down and watch a movie with a little bit of homework. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I try not to say I'm
Thank you
excited
for
18
coming
million
on.
times because
You are jubilant.
yeah,
You are like, hit that
where's my
synonyms. Oh, shit.
thesaurus?
I'm full of awe. I am in amazement.
I think this is really neat, and I'm pumped. I've never been more excited to have homework.
Yay! All right. Well, we're gonna leave it at that, guys. We're gonna let JR go do his homework, and then when we come back, you'll just get to listen to 2 people who have just watched this movie go like, "Oh my god," over and over. So it should be real fun.
Yeah, should be a good time.
I made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. I don't mean to.
Oh, Sam.
All right, we are back from the break with JR, who has just watched Fellowship. He is now no longer free of not knowing. The ignorance of bliss is gone.
It is 2024, and I have finally watched Fellowship of the Ring. It happened.
It happened.
My old manager can now, at least I'm partially cultured. I'm now no longer completely uncultured. I'm partially cultured because I have seen the first, what is it, 3 hours
Yeah.
of the saga. I've done it. I did it. And yeah, like you said, me and my wife and I finished it literally last night.
Mm-hmm.
We watched it in a couple chunks because my
Mm-hmm.
attention span is terrible.
It's long too. It is
Yep,
long.
it's a hefty, but we didn't watch the extended edition. We
Good.
watched what I assume to be the regular,
Yes.
but it was still a hefty boy. But it was fun. I'm glad. Like, not only was it fun to experience doing this and this show, it gave me an excuse to watch it. But like,
Mhm.
it was a good movie.
Yeah,
It's not. It wasn't bad.
it
But
wasn't
yes,
bad.
I have
Yeah.
seen. I have seen it. I've done it, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, Veni Vidi Vici, right? You came, you saw, you have conquered.
That's
You've done the task. That's
Yep.
awesome. I was I I know how long it is. I love the movie. I have a lot of love for it, but I get really frustrated with how many of my friends want to watch all three in a row in like a day or a weekend or make it like our New Year's tradition. And I'm just like, it is a lot to sit through,
That's
let
too
alone
much.
ass to ass to ass. I mean, that's how it was filmed, which is incredibly impressive. As I said in part one, the filming of this was all done in the same amount of time that it took to shoot Apocalypse Now, which is 129 days. So living it must have also been exciting. But I just can't. I can't. I feel like it makes me want to hate it. That's too much fandom, and it reminds me of your manager.
Yeah. I imagine, not trying to throw shade at him. He was a
Mhm.
fine person.
No,
But I
he's an
imagine he
asshole. I
would.
hate him.
Yeah, let's
No,
call a spade a
no.
spade. Like it's he wasn't the it was 2006. It was anyways. I
Mhm,
can't, if you were to sit me down, like the movies that I had talked about in part one, like the Whiplash, Big Short, and Spotlight. If you were to sit me down and be like, "Hey, these are three of your favorite movies. Let's watch them back to back to back," I wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And yeah, it's a little different because they're not part of a trilogy. They're not
mhm.
related, so it's a little different than watching Lord of the Rings back to back. But to sit there and be like, "Hey, let's take the next 9+ hours and just do that." I'm not interested in that. Like, even a friend of mine way back, I worked with a person who big into Star Wars, love Star
Mhm,
Wars. In the,
mhm.
what is it, the 506th? Is that the stormtrooper, like, brigade isn't the right word, but like they're all a part of a
Platoon?
community and they go to events and they I think it's
Ah,
called the 506th. I can't
okay.
remember. I'll probably be.
This is the part where I reveal that I actually know way more about Star Trek than Star Wars.
I
So
mean,
I'm just like, yeah, yeah, I know 100,
totally,
fun.
yeah. The
Love it.
stormtroopers. He's a huge
Wow.
Star Wars guy, and I worked with him when Force Awakens came out. So it was like, oh my god, Star Wars is
Ooh,
coming back again. And he went to this thing where they showed all six originals,
holy
and then
shit.
you watch the new one.
Holy
And
shit.
even he, who, like, his life is Star Wars, and I talked to him the next day. He's like, I would never ever do that again, ever. It was not like, it's one of those where the hype is so high at first. Oh my god, we're doing it. We're doing the Star Wars. But then, 3 or 4 movies in, you're hours and hours deep. Apparently, the theater was just rancid at that point.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just not enjoyable. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, to get back to it was like, yeah, it was a long movie. It was still very good.
Mhm.
I would like to watch the next two. My wife and I were discussing, because she's seen them.
That was my next question, yeah.
Yeah, my wife is cultured. She's seen them before.
Well, it's so nice of her to extend the olive branch and even marry someone as uncultured as
I
you,
know,
to be
I know.
honest.
I don't know how I landed this one, but um,
Oof.
she and she was even kind in it too, because we finished the movie and, like, I could tell she wanted to discuss things that happen later on. She's like, "Do you plan on watching the other?" And I was like, I probably would do it. Like, she didn't just come straight out and say, like, "Oh, Gandalf comes back" or something. Because doesn't he? I
Mhm,
think that's already been spoiled for me, because he's no longer gray. He's white or something. I don't know, but I've
mhm.
seen some of the memes. That's one of the downsides of waiting 23 years to watch
Of
something,
course.
is the memes spoil some stuff. But
Mhm. It definitely does. I mean, it's kind of exciting because you have this moment of recognition where you're like, "Oh, I finally know where that's from and the context surrounding it." But you can kind of put yourself together and be like, "Okay, so this would have to happen chronologically for the next meme to make sense. So I know this character can't possibly die here because they're in a meme
right.
from later
Yeah.
on."
Yeah, and I did have that, like, in my notes for things that I wanted to kind of touch on, because it was fun to actually see where, the genesis of so many jokes and so many just reoccurring memes and gifs and all that stuff came from. Whether it was like the bobbing Gandalf head in the beginning when he's smiling that people used to put like on all their computer backgrounds way back, and I'm reaching way back to vintage memes.
I mean, computers were barely a thing at that point, but we did use them.
And like there's the Boromir one does not simply thing, which
Of
stranglehold
course.
on meme culture.
That one and Winter is Coming, I think, are the, and maybe the one where Justin Timberlake is telling us it's going to be May.
Yep.
Like those are the annual, because Winter's Coming, you get that one, and then it's going to be May, and then one does not simply just applies to
Yeah,
everything.
so it was the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV screen moment when he
Oh,
dropped the
yes.
line.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to kind of see, and I remember I audibly declared when they were in the mines. I was like, say the line, Gandalf, say it. And then he declared that they shall not pass, which I will say, and I'm just kind of bouncing around. What a moment. Good Lord. Because I've seen that clip out of context. I've seen it, people splice it in with funny videos or whatever, but like in
Mm-hmm.
context, the lead up and how tense the situation is when he drops that. Oh my God. Ian McKellen, Sir Ian, just
Yes, Sir.
completely carried that. Oh, that was unbelievable performance. So good.
Yeah, I wrote down every time someone said a line that I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a meme," or "That's an incredibly quoted line," and I just couldn't. I couldn't put the pen down. I have over 20 over here written, and even in the "Thou shalt not pass," just before that, he does the "Fly you fools" line as
Yeah.
well, which is a highly quoted line, and both of those hit in the kind of way where, like, if you had that parent who is always kind of chill, easy to be around, and then suddenly they're scared of something, and you're like, oh shit, if Gandalf is taking this seriously and telling us to run, it must be
Yeah.
horrible.
Yep. It
Yeah.
was it was great. Even though I knew it was coming, I've heard the line, I've seen the scene, I've YouTubed the scene
Mm-hmm.
before just because I wanted to see it. But everything in
Mm-hmm.
context and everything put together, it just made it that much more impactful, whatever you want to say. But
Mm-hmm.
it was really neat seeing all the stuff that I've seen out of context over the last 20 years put into
Mm-hmm.
context and into the story. And especially
Mm-hmm.
I we touched on this in part 1. I had started reading The Hobbit like a week before you reached out to me, and I've
Yeah.
since finished it, and it was really cool at specifically the beginning of the movie. I may have missed some stuff later on. So many
Mm-hmm.
callbacks, so many references to The Hobbit, and the Hobbit movies hadn't happened yet or anything like that.
They weren't entirely sure they'd get it, to get the funding for it.
So like Gandalf and Bilbo are all like, I counted, there was like 5 references in like a couple minutes just referencing stuff that happened in The Hobbit, and then I was like, I get that. I understand what they're talking about because I literally just read the book.
Yeah.
But it was neat because you don't need to know that stuff. You don't need to know where he got the ring and like their past and all that. But like it was for those who I guess, and I'd assume most people who are really into Lord of the Rings have read The Hobbit. But it was really cool. It was one of those like,
Yeah.
oh, I get that. I'm not completely in the dark here.
Yeah, and I think that they're also vying on a certain amount of us saw the animated Hobbit in the like
Hmm.
80s. Because I definitely watched the animated version of that over and over and over again. And really, again, I'm still asking for someone to make a trap version of Whip There's a Way. I think that's it's vying for it. So to come into Lord of the Rings and have them reference back to that, I was like, yeah, I know that. I remember Gollum taking the ring and that scene in the like cave. Is so good. It's a shorthand to include us.
And I remember when I was reading The Hobbit and he finds the ring, and I was like, wait, is this the same ring that's the big deal in the movies? It just turns him invisible. What's going on here? Why is this so sought after
Mm-hmm.
later on? But they definitely kind of elaborate on that and how it takes time, and it was very good, and it was just a nice to have that kind of lore, especially being a comic geek, lore gets me.
Yes.
Everyone loves we talked about like Elden Ring and stuff in part 1. Like the joke with Elden Ring is, what's the lore though? What's the lore with this plant? What's the lore with this tree? Everyone needs to know the lore of everything. So it was cool to have so much of that.
Yeah. I think that I like how Elden Ring creates a version of the game, which kind of is like what we're talking about right here, where you don't have to know the lore. You can play the game. All of the lore is hidden in the description of every item that you pick up. So you have to go in there and read it and then make your deductions, and it's, based on referencing other things. And if you read all of it, you'll get it, but you can still play the game. And I think that's crucial to why this trilogy succeeded. There was a fan base that was rabid about its accuracy and what it included and how it did what it did, but it also still needed to be open to the massive amount of, I guess, uncultured people who wanted to know more about it, because fantasy wasn't really a big thing. Like, your predisposition to say, like, I don't know if I want to be a nerd like this makes so much sense. I mean, Nikolai Waldorf, oh God, how do you say his name? Nikolai Waldor Costa? I can't even say
Jamie
it. The guy
Lannister.
from Game of Thrones, Jamie Lannister, didn't tell anybody he was in Game of Thrones until like the middle of season 1 had premiered, because he was afraid that his friends were going to make fun of him for being in this thing. And he's like, I don't know, it's fantasy. You're not supposed to do
Yeah.
fantasy. Like, the original Dungeons and Dragons had just come out. We all know how good that was.
Yeah, and there's such a stigma with like LARPing and talking in that. Like, I've been to my fair share of and it's not the same, but I've been to steampunk shows, which is, I guess, adjacent to it.
I would say
It's a
tangential at
yeah,
least.
it's like a fantasy genre, but there's some influence there. And going to those shows, like I'm not one for cosplay, I'm not one for dressing up. I have no problem with people who do. I think cosplayers are rad. It's just not for me. So I would be one of the few people at a steampunk show, not in character, not dressed up, not, and like I'm looked at like the weirdo, But like there is a stigma that goes along with shows like that, Oh, like when my manager would ask me what I was doing that weekend, I'd be like, oh, it was nothing. I don't need to explain that I was at a steampunk show pretending to be, flying a dirigible in New Jersey over the weekend. But there are those stigmas that come with it, and I'm glad movies like this exist to kind of get rid of them, or at least help to, because
Yeah.
one could argue that, again, like I've been made fun of for not having seen Lord of the Rings for 20 years now. What do you do? What are you doing? Why haven't you seen it, idiot?
It's so interesting. It's like it goes both ways, where in like the one hand, you're made fun of for not participating, and then you can be made fun of for participating. It's almost like we made fun of Lord of Rings people for so long that they decided to gatekeep it. And be like, "Oh, now you wanna know about Lord of the Rings because it's
You
cool?"
can't win.
And the
There's no
movie is
winning.
trying to include everybody, and you get this one fan base that's like, "I feel ostracized by being
Yeah.
included."
Yep. And admittedly, like I've always been, I think we touched on this in the first part, but
Mhm,
like I've matured a lot. I like to think I have in the
mhm,
last, couple decades, but we've all had those moments where we were just kind of a jerk, gatekeeping whatever you want to say. But I like to think in
mhm,
recent years is just let people, if it's not hurting anyone, let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. Um,
mhm,
it might not be for me. Like I said, I'm not
mhm,
interested in cosplaying. It's just not my thing, but
mhm,
I can still appreciate it. And if you're into that and you're not hurting anyone, have at it. Like enjoy it. And
mhm.
that goes for fantasy. It's I've
Oh, yeah.
I've been actively trying to hunt down more. That's why I started reading The Hobbit. I was like, I want to read more fantasy. Because it can be
Mhm.
fun. I again, I apologize if I already talked about this because I can't remember. I can't keep straight what I referenced in the first
It's
one. But like
okay.
reading, I read another divisive. I read Name of the Wind. Pat.
Oh god, yeah, that is divisive.
Yeah. Yep. And maybe I'm just new to fantasy. I haven't read a ton of it. I loved it. I thought it was great. Read the second one. I can't remember the name of it. Um, Wise Man's Fear. Uh, didn't
Yes.
like it as much. Still
Yes.
enjoyed it. And now, I guess we're supposed to hate Patrick Rothfuss because he hasn't released the new book, and also there's some I've read stories about fundraising shenanigans, and I don't know. I still thought the books were fun.
I'll tangent on that a little bit. I have read some of the Name of the Wind, which I always want to, like, my brain has this terrible, like, it'll let pages of things stick together and just be like, yeah, the Hudsucker Proxy is the same exact movie as Glengarry Glen Ross. No. So I often have to be like, Name of the Wind is not Dances with Wolves. It just sounds like it might
Yeah,
be.
yeah, yep.
For me, my problem with Patrick is that he doesn't include women in a way that is enjoyable or allows me to get into the book. And I sometimes worry that sci-fi writers do this thing where, like, I think manic pixie stories do this a lot. The main character is kind of using this story as a therapy. And so the
Right.
writer has, like, I'm not the main character, you are the main character. And I just wish this cool girl would fall in love with me. So I'm going to write a story where that happens. And sometimes I have heard people say that that's what it feels like to read a Rothfuss. How do you say the last name? I'm fucking every name
Rothfuss, I
today.
believe. I believe it's Rothfuss.
Rothfuss.
Yeah.
To read a Rothfuss novel can sometimes feel like, should he be paying me for reading this?
Yeah, and one of my, because I will be the first to admit they're not perfect books. Like,
No.
I had fun with them. I enjoyed them. I
Yeah.
didn't hate read them like apparently some people have
Mhm.
done. But I'm not going to
It's
go out
very
there and say that they're
lovely.
flawless. And if you have any criticisms, then you're an idiot, because I don't think they're perfect. I
No.
I
Mhm.
liked in the first book. There's obviously the love interest, which they have a somewhat frustrating relationship, and like you said, is how they're and then they're just kind of coy with each other, whatever. And then in the second book, the main character just turns into a fuck machine, and he spends half the book either fucking this barbarian warrior woman or this pixie like fairy elf
Yeah.
woman in some alternate dimension, and they're just fucking. They're just all they're doing is
Yeah.
fucking, and I'm like, okay, man, can we get back to, I don't know, like, remember when he was struggling with money in the first one?
You start to be like, at least Martin me and describe a goddamn feast for too long.
Yeah,
um,
it's I can't even imagine how hard it is to write stuff like that. I don't
oh
want to
God,
make
yeah.
excuses for the decisions,
No.
but it definitely they weren't perfect. I still thought they were fun. I'm excited for the third one, but I'm not one of those people who's like every single morning they wake up and they say, "Where the fuck is Doors of Stone?" or whatever it's supposed to be called. I can't remember. Um, it's
Yeah.
just I spent 10 years working in a bookstore, and I remember when Dance with Dragons came out, the fifth Game of Thrones book, and that
Mm-hmm.
was 2012, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going on 12 years since that's release, and I would field questions on a daily basis. Is there when's the new George R. R. Martin? Nobody knows. Literally nobody knows.
You don't?
Um,
You don't? You guy in random bookstore? You don't
sorry.
specifically personally know?
Yep.
Can you write him an email and can you give him can he text me?
People would get mad at
If there a
us.
wait list for being told?
Yeah, people would get mad at us. Well, let me put in a pre-order. I would love to do that, but I don't have a way
I don't
of
even know
doing
what to
that. You
charge
need to
you.
understand
No,
that.
yeah, there's no IBN for this yet. This brings me to an interesting point, which is what I think is crucial to enjoying anything, which is that nothing is technically perfect in the form of art. I know that some people are going to disagree with me and be like, no, it can be measured. It can be, but it kind of isn't. I know people who hate the Beatles. I know people who don't like the Mona Lisa. Like, no matter what you do, you're going to find someone for whom that just doesn't resonate. But you need to have that door open. So you need to be able to be like, hey, I really like this. I'm psyched you don't know about it, and I would love to invite you in to see maybe if this is something that you like. But also, if you don't like parts of it, you should be able to say that to me, and we can talk about that too. And maybe I can say something back that'll enlighten and make it better, or maybe you'll help me see something I didn't see before. But like, if you want to treat it like Gollum and be like, leave my precious alone, no one wants to play with Gollum. He's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think being able to admit that the thing that you love isn't perfect is crucial. It's
Yeah.
we Alex and I talked about this on OMV all the time. We would like discuss hot takes or cold takes, and like it's so easy to just fall into the and we discussed this in part one. It's just so easy to fall into the what, you don't like this? Why not? Like, are you stupid?
Mhm. Mhm.
But admitting that I'm trying to think of something that I very much like. Like Saga. Saga is one of the best comic books
Yes.
in the last
Yeah, my
ever.
sister was just talking about that yesterday, how good it
Yeah,
is. It's like 60 books deep too, right?
something like that. And they
Yeah.
and it takes a while because they take a lot of breaks.
Mhm.
The way they do their thing is they'll do like 6 issues, which is your standard arc in a comic, and then they'll take a couple months off to give the writer and the artist time to put it together, so they're not crunching and slamming out issues, and maybe the quality might suffer if they're
Mhm.
focused on meeting a deadline and stuff. And then they famously took years off. I can't remember when it was, but I think they took 4 years off from the book or something like that. Again, I could be
Mhm.
over or under representing the time frame there, but they took years off of the book because that's just what they want. And it lost them a lot of fans. It was pretty divisive. Some people say that
Mhm.
since, because the book started up again a year or two ago, some people say it hasn't
Mhm.
been the same since.
Mm.
But I love Saga. Saga is incredible. I think it's a beautiful story. The art is in Oh my god, I can't say enough good things about the art. But I'll also tell you,
Nice.
it's not perfect. It's not a perfect book. It's probably the best comic I've ever read, but that doesn't mean that it's without flaw. And I'm not going to sit here and call anyone who might have a problem with some part of it, because like that's, again, with everything, that's especially stuff that's
Mhm.
popular, there's going to be divisive opinions. People are going to come in and say, uh, the book hasn't been the same, or the schedule is ridiculous. How am I supposed to, so many people have died since this book started. They're never going to finish it. I get it.
Mhm.
It's frustrating, especially
Yeah.
when you want the thing.
And it's not fun to engage in something like watching a movie or enjoying art or sharing a book where you can't stop and be like, "Hey, what the hell is going on in this? This makes no s" like, all the people who wanna say of Lord of the Rings, why don't they just get on the thing that saved Gandalf off of the tower, get on one of them birds, get on a moth, and get yourself to Moria and just drop the ring in that way. And like, or why didn't the Balrog has wings? Why did he fall? Are those vestigial? Can he
I didn't even think
fly?
about
And you're like,
that.
Exactly. But it's still super enjoyable. You're still having a great time watching it. And people need to be able to be like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and
It just adds to it, in my
I
opinion.
get that. Why don't they just fly there? Well, then we wouldn't have the fucking
Mhm.
movie,
It's
you know?
fucking 3 movies, guy. Yeah, exactly. Like, then there's no what if Batman's parents just didn't die? Then there's no story.
Did Bruce
Yes,
Wayne
better
consider
choice,
not
I
having dead
guess.
parents? Like, is he stupid?
So stupid.
And that, even to kind of touch on this, I definitely didn't feel like the movie was perfect. I thought it was a great time. I will admit, a couple times I caught myself dozing a little bit, whether that was
Mhm.
just due to lack of sleep. I had literally gotten tattooed earlier in the day, so my body was demolished. There are a couple
Yeah.
couple factors that could have been my own fault. I think the fact that I might have some criticisms does not mean that I think that it was a bad movie. I thought it was enjoyable. I thought the cast was great.
That's the rapport between all of them. Like, not only are they individually good actors doing wonderful performances, but the feeling that they are truly a group of friends was so cultivated and achieved.
Yeah. It's I was having a hard time. I instinctively wanted to pick a favorite. Who's my favorite character in this? Because I'd be like, oh, Gandalf is Ian McKellen is carrying this film with the witty banter and the rapport, and also just the monumental lines. And he's a wizard. Wizards are cool.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
I also thought Samwise was great. I think I get the Samwise stuff. The Sean Astin, he was just so lovable, and the fact that he always says Mr. Frodo, he was just so wholesome. Love Samwise. And then Gimli would show up and be like, I just forgot Gimli would exist all the time. And then there was like, oh right, Gimli's
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah, and that was Jonathan Rhys Davis, who is an actor I know very well and never recognized in this role because he's hidden in the makeup and he's made so short, and he is truly a 6'12" person in real life. So you're constantly like, wait, what?
Literally in the ending credits, when I saw his name, I was like, "Wait, he was in this? Who
Wait, what?
was he?" And then my wife and I were looking into it, like, "Oh my god, he was Gimli."
Really?
I thought, Sean Bean is just incredible. Boromir, the whole arc with his, and I didn't have any spoilers. I didn't know what happens with Boromir, like, and how he kind
Mm-hmm.
of is a bad guy for a hot minute,
Mm-hmm.
but not really through his own doing. I thought that was incredibly well done. It made me sad.
He kind of really represents this like major fault in humanity and why we could never have the ring.
Yeah.
And he plays that out so well in just this little like side story. Oh my God, did it make me sick. So having seen this movie many times and knowing what would happen, I still had those beats. They still got me emotionally to those points where when he's sitting there and he's told by Strider that like, you did your job. This is what we want. You've achieved. Like, did you not get teared up?
It was crushing because it's so easy to be like, what are you doing? Like, why is he doing that? I, being the model citizen and an incredible protagonist of my own story, I would simply resist the ring. Like, it's so easy to just say, but like, we're
Mhm.
all, man is fallible and all that stuff. Boromir was kind of like the everyman. And he admitted, like, he's like, I fucked up. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
He still had per standard Sean Bean procedure, had a great death. It's it just really it tugged the heartstrings, despite the fact
Oh,
that
yeah.
20 minutes earlier you hated him.
Exactly. He has said that that is his favorite death of all of his
That's a
deaths.
lot
That
of
is his
deaths.
favorite
So
death scene. I know that. I mean, there's one where he literally gets chased off of a bluff by a bunch of sheep. So, like, guys got a whole Louvre
yep,
of them.
yep. But yeah, I guess going back to I thought all the characters were incredibly well done,
Mhm.
and even actors that I'm not too familiar with. I don't think this might even be the first movie I've ever seen with Vigo in it. It's potentially the first role I've seen him play. He was fantastic. Kate Blanchett's one of my favorite actors out there. So, and I knew she was in
Mhm.
it. I will say that's probably the most confusing part of the movie to me, if we're eh, kind of touching
Mhm.
back to criticisms, was,
Mhm.
and maybe you can help me with this because I didn't want to Google it. I
Yeah.
figured it would be good discussion. Like, why did she
Yeah.
get really mad all of a sudden? It's like she's just like, oh hey, I'm Gladriel, and we're doing this talking, and then now I'm negative and I'm yelling at you, and that actually I'm fine again, so you're free to go. I didn't understand that whole scene where she just.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
what's
Yeah, yeah.
happening
So
here?
Gladriel, who, so there's the voiceover at the very beginning of the movie, which is Gladriel's
Right.
voice. They were originally going to have Elijah Wood do that, but it didn't make any sense because he would have been talking about stuff that he didn't experience and didn't live through. The idea is that Gladriel is one of the elves who's there at the creation of the ring and has experienced all of this. So the elves are given their own ring, and once they realize that it allows Saruman
Mhm.
to see them and read their thoughts, they simply just don't use their rings. The elves are just like, no, we're smarter than this. We're not going to do that. So when she sees the ring of superpower, the biggest one of all, she is doing exactly what Boromir has done. She's
Oh,
coming close to see, am I good enough that I know I can get this guy, this hobbit, to offer me the ring? If he offers me the ring, what would I do with it? And she sees that she would become corrupt, just like Boromir, just like everyone else. And she says, okay, I know my answer now. You have to leave.
right. That makes That makes sense thinking back. All the
Yeah.
context and I was also having trouble like understanding what she was saying, and like I didn't want to sit there and
Mm.
rewind it and like, but like I turned to
Subtitles
my wife
on.
and I was like, "What just happened?" What? Because it was just so sudden. Like 1 minute she's
Yes,
chill,
yes.
the next she's like Mr. Negative in the Spider-Man games, and then the next minute she's chill again.
Yeah.
But I say that was the only part of the movie where I was like, "Wait, what?"
You see that again with Ian Holmes at the end with the too much butter and too little butter over too much toast scene where he goes like
Right, yeah. Which, like,
face.
I've seen in the memes and all that stuff with the
So it didn't scare you when that happened?
I knew it was coming through the
Stephen
weirdest
Living.
context ever. One of my
Yeah.
favorite people that I watch on Twitch, he's a live streamer, has one of his like sub alerts. So when people subscribe to him, is that like jump scare of Bilbo like turning into it always reminds me of Large Marge from Pee Wee's Big
Oh my god.
Adventure.
That takes the piss out of it, but you are right, sir. A little bit of that and the head from Beetlejuice and the snake.
Yep.
Oh, did I tell you the fact about that Ian loves that scene so much, and they had to do a little cast of his face to get it right, and they molded the, like he made them make a bronze version of the final face, and he has that installed in the middle of his
Incredible.
mantelpiece in his house.
Incredible.
He loved it so
It
much.
yeah, it was just so and we know we didn't even touch on like Christopher Lee. Fantastic. He's so good at being bad.
And carried the whole cast, did a lot of like he's the one who has met Tolkien
Yep.
in real life and has read the book so he did a lot of makeup help. Like this movie is a result of all of his passion. Like I think watching this again, having seen it so many times, what got me through, because you're right, it is long and it is boring. At certain points, I don't mean to be rude,
Right,
but
yeah.
like is knowing the facts about what the actors were doing and being able to be like, I'm watching a man live his absolute fucking dream role here. This is so elating.
Yeah. It was one of those I had to do the thing, even though I had never seen it before, where I had to pause it and explain to my wife what you explained to me about how he's read the book every year it's come out, and he was the only one who actually knew Tolkien. So like, and she thought that was, maybe she was just humoring me, but she thought that was fascinating. She's like, can you imagine what that must have been like the catharsis or whatever, like being a part of this and being able to lend that kind of input. And it's just, and he also killed it. Like he was so good. I mean, I guess that goes without
Amazing.
saying with Christopher Lee, but he was phenomenal.
Yeah, he brought it to 11. You can definitely see that in the
Yeah.
performance, and it's amazing. The scene where they're fighting
Yeah.
in the tower, the two could have easily been so cheesy, and yet somehow it's like, oh shit, this is
Two
cool.
wizards duking it out with their staves. Like that's baller. And like you said, there were so many ways it could have just been done poorly, especially nowadays in the day and age of just overdone and overshot fight scenes where you just have no idea what's happening. Yeah, I will say, I think my main, I don't know if this is called a criticism or if it was just jarring to me, or this might just be me unfamiliar with Peter Jackson's work, because admittedly I don't think I've seen like I've seen clips of like Dead Alive with a lawnmower, but I don't know if I've seen really any other Peter Jackson films. I'm quickly pulling up his IMDb to try and like verify that, but I'm not familiar with his work. I've seen like bits of King Kong.
Have you seen Heavenly Creatures? Is one that I think people forget is him.
No, I to be honest, I
Okay.
hadn't heard of it.
It's the first film you get Melanie Linsky and Kate Winslet in.
Right. Okay.
They're starting roles.
But yeah, I just scrolling really fast. I honestly don't think I've seen any of his movies before, at least in their entirety. I've seen clips and stuff like that, so I'm not too familiar with like his style. But the most jarring thing to me was there were so many like face shots. Everything is on the face, and I don't know if that's again his style or if it's was to help with the fact that there's different. They had to do so much camera trickery with sizing, and like these people are actually really small, but we need to make them, we have to force the perspective and all that stuff. There were so many just face shots, and I was like, man, we are just right up on everyone's face all the time.
That is so interesting.
I think that was the most like stark thing that like stuck out to me was just the way it was shot with just a lot of faces.
That's so funny because like you're pointing it out, and it's I didn't notice that while I was watching it, but I'm definitely like, oh yeah, and I would have to say that it is choice too. I would have to say that because this is the first time that they're doing it as well,
Yeah.
so they're just starting to do the forced perspective. This might be because of that, because it's so hard to do it any other way, or at least with editing and different, like this person isn't even in the same set as the other
Right.
person. But I wonder if it continues to be as heavy in 2 and 3 as they start to kind of get a little used to
Yeah.
it.
I'm gonna have to like I plan on
Yeah.
watching the others, but like
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it because like you watch a Sam Raimi movie and a lot of times like, oh, this is a Sam Raimi movie.
Mhm.
You see it in
Mhm.
Spider-Man, you see it in Evil Dead, and then you see it like you watch Quick of the Dead, and it's like you see all the same kind of camera signature things. So I was like,
Mhm.
maybe that's just a Peter Jackson thing, or there's a lot that they had to do with perspective and making people seem like they were not the size they were. Like they're
Mhm.
when Gandalf's carrying
Yeah.
Frodo, he's
Yeah.
like clearly
Yeah.
carrying like a toddler.
Yes. Yes. He's got the 2 of them on the when Boromir's carrying both Pippin and
Yeah,
Merry, and you're just like, "This is just like 2 little, real dolls that are stuck to
yeah,
him."
it made me chuckle.
I have seen a fair amount of Peter Jackson, and I wouldn't say that a close shot on a face is a particularly like heavy thing that I associate with him. I tend to associate more like campy. I would say early Peter Jackson is pretty close to Sam
Mm,
Raimi with that level of like camp and special effects
right,
and really, really big silliness. There's I guess the orcs, and again, all the orcs in this are played by the people in the Weta workshop that made them. So they're actually not actors, they're special effects
right.
makeup people. And they feel like the most Peter Jackson-y scenes because you get a little bit of campy, a little bit of gross. I don't think this line is in this one. I think it's in 2, the one where they say it looks like Hobbit is back on the menu, which is something that I've always thoroughly enjoyed because it implies that orcs have restaurants.
Right.
They know what a menu is, they understand this concept.
And they're upset that Hobbit is no longer an option.
Yeah,
And now
it got
it's back.
86, but it's back. Yeah.
And they're ecstatic.
So that kind of goofiness, I feel, is the moments in which you start to see what is probably a more traditional Peter Jackson, although I feel like he's come out of
Yeah.
that, and in some of his more subdued work or subtle work, you'll see this. I think Jackson really wanted to make a movie that felt like it was from Tolkien, and then had his special effects in it. I don't think he as much wanted to be like, "Oh, I want people to know that this is a Scorsese film
Right.
or a Spielberg film or a J.J. Abrams film," and I kinda respect that.
Yeah, and even with that, it doesn't kill the movie for me. It's not
Mhm.
it was a little jarring at times or just kind
Mhm.
of different, but I still thought it was a very good movie. Incredible just scenery. The scenes with them were like
Mhm.
walking through, whether it's up in the ice, and also I remembered after the fact, I was like, oh right, the whole Sean Bean thing, being terrified of helicopters and having to make his way up. Oh my god. And then
Oh
work
my
and then
god.
walk all the way back.
Yeah.
And I had to remind myself, like, damn, this was 2001. This is a long time ago. Because we're so spoiled nowadays with high quality um, shots and movies, and everything is in 8K.
Mhm.
And this was a
Mhm.
long time ago. Um, it's
Yeah.
like we discussed in part one. This is when Limp Bizkit was on top of the world, and
Chaos reigned, I suppose. They are re-releasing it in the next couple of weeks in I feel like at a certain point they just keep saying more words. It's
yeah,
like extended 4K
director's
red
edition.
box blue letter steel. It's going to be in theaters first, and you're just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." So it's going to be
At what
crisp.
point does it start turning into like the George Lucas which version have you seen? Did you see the one with
Exactly.
like the fake Jabba the Hutt or like the CGI Jabba the Hutt, or cuz like from what there's the regular version that I watched, there's the extended edition. I was
Mhm.
reading quick, like I guess there's been stuff edited out. I guess there was a car visible in one of the scenes famously or something
Mhm.
when Samwise is also, that reminds me, just so many good lines. Oh my god. So when Samwise was talking about how, one more step and I'm the furthest from home I've ever been, like
I
that just hit
know.
the whole stepping out your front. I'm going to butcher the quote, but like stepping out your front door is a dangerous thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, so many and basically everything Gandalf says, you could get a tattoo of anything he says and it would be meaningful.
Yeah, I'm sure so many people have the one about where he goes, Gandalf, I wish the ring had never come to me.
Yeah.
That the reply back, so do many people yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So I know people who have that
Yeah.
tattoo.
And I don't blame them. It's there
Yeah.
were so many just really powerful lines. And having not read the book, I don't know if they were lifted directly from the book or if it was just a credit to amazing writing. Either
Mhm,
way, uh, it
mhm,
was a lot of them like hit home. I was like, damn, that was like I thought it was just a movie about wizards and hobbits. Like it's just some of them hit home.
mhm.
It's it's
Well, yeah,
especially like in
but
recent years. Stepping out your front door is dangerous these days. Yeah,
mhm,
Well, and so much is going on, and so much can happen, and whether it's uh, diseases or um, shootings or protests, or it's intense out there. And this book was written when, and here we are in 2024, and it's still tough.
yeah. So I was just pulling it up to make sure I remembered the year. It was 1937
Good
that this book
lord,
came out. It couldn't have been super long. I know Christopher Lee is alive to have read
right?
it uh, that year and then every subsequent year. But what's so interesting about Tolkien's attempt to make this book is that he wanted to make a book that kind of had a like a mythology for England that didn't they had the Arthurian legends, but they didn't really have a fantasy beyond that. And so he kind of wanted to create something, and the hobbits represent the like nature of the British people, especially having it just been the First World War, and they could stay very insular. They could just be good-natured, kind of, we keep on our own. But by venturing out and seeing what else is there, they can contribute to a larger community, and you can see how this plucky person can be exactly what they need. Like, so the elves can look at the hobbits and be like, these guys are useless. What does England really have? What England has in spades is pluckiness, dedication, loyalty, everything that you see in Samwise. Like, he is so well played by
Hmm.
Austin, who gains 30 pounds to play the role. In the last scene where they're in the boat and he runs out to him and says, I promised I'd take care of you, always gets me to start
Yeah.
crying. What a beautiful representation of a platonic friendship love that is so deep and non-sexual, as much as some people would like to make slasher fic about it. It is rare to see a story that has two people who are just platonically in love to that extent. Austin also, despite them dredging the lake there in that scene, there was a piece of glass, so he runs out and cuts his foot very badly. They still do what they can of the scene, and then he's helicoptered out.
Ugh.
So that's his performance being injured. Still kills me.
It's just that scene was a little like, and it's nice to see, like you said, that just utter devotion, and it's
Mhm.
not transactional. It's not I need to save you because if I don't, I'm not going to get paid, or I'm not going to get the girl, or
Mhm.
I'll miss out on. I need to do this because this is what I need to do. It's what
Mhm.
is right. It's what the correct thing. It was just, and I've never been this big. I've seen what is it, Stranger Things season 2 with Sean Astin shows
Mhm.
up and as
Mhm.
Bob, and everyone loved Bob. Bob was great.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've seen Rudy, but like
Yeah.
Sean Astin's never been like a holy shit, it's Sean Astin to me. It's just oh yeah,
Mhm.
he's good. Like, but he just
There he is.
he was great. I thought
So
Sam
good.
was one of my favorite characters, which I guess is
Mm.
you could say that about anyone in the movie. To be honest, even as we discussed in part
Mm.
one, Orlando Bloom didn't hate him. I Legolas is fine with me, man. Like You know, he
Nice.
didn't. Nothing was ruined. I thought archers are badass.
Yep.
He made it look. I don't know a ton about archery, but he made it look believable. No one really did a bad job, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he is 2 weeks out of acting school when he
Right?
begins
Yeah.
filming
Yep. We had
this.
talked about that.
So, and he does some subtle acting, knowing now what some of the cues are. Like, so the scene after Gandalf dies to the group, they had to record that first, so they hadn't even met Ian McKellen yet. So they're trying to emotionally react to the
How do
death
you
of a
do
person they
that?
haven't even
Like,
met. How do you do that? They all did a really great job. But if you watch Orlando Bloom, his character is trying to convey the concept of like he's an elf. He doesn't see people die. He just witnessed death for probably the first time in his
right?
life. So what? Like he's not only just lost a friend, he has to like hold the idea of death for the first time. And if you look for that, you're like, oh shit, that's what that looks like on a face.
No.
Well done,
Yep.
sir.
Yep. It was just really well done. I couldn't imagine having to do that. I again, the extent of my acting has been in like Starwell, Alex's
Yeah.
audio drama that he's been doing,
Mm-hmm.
and even then, Alex had me do 2 characters, and then he had me like read for a third, and then like I was in it. He had to stop me and be like, okay, so we're kind of just going back into the same voice he already gave me. And it's like, oh yeah, so I found out that I have 2 voices and that's it. That's the extent of my because like, and you watch a cartoon or whatever, be like, I could be a voice actor. And that would be so sweet. I could totally be a voice actor. Turns out it's really fucking hard because not only do you have to have the ability to act, but also potentially change your voice and inflections and accents, and it's hard. It's harder than you think.
Absolutely. I'm so impressed by the people who, like Brett, have like a slew of different people they could be. And then you look at Matt Berry, H. John Benjamin,
It's the same thing, but it works.
I'm surprised who are just doing that one voice for every single character. Who does Bender? DiMaggio,
John DiMaggio,
I think
yeah,
is the
yep,
guy's name.
yep,
Yeah, is like just that one. You'll be listening to a character and be like, is that Bender? Yes, it
yeah.
is because that's that
That's
guy's
John
voice,
DiMaggio,
and he
yep.
can do other. They both can. All of them can do other voices, but for some reason, like Matt Berry, just be Matt Berry. You're
Yeah,
fine. We want that
that's what we
voice.
want. We had, this is a bit of a brag here, way back in OMV, when Overwatch first came out.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite character in Overwatch was Torbjorn, who's like a little builder dwarf type guy,
Mm-hmm.
builds
Mm-hmm.
turrets with a, is it Swedish accent? I don't know. I don't know accents, but I reached out to the voice
With Tor, I would think so. Yeah.
yeah. I reached out to the voice actor, Keith Silverstein, to be like, "Hey man, you want to come on the show? Can we like talk about," and like it was just one of those shot in the dark. There's no way he's going to accept. And then like 12 hours later, he's like, "Yeah, sure." And we got to talk with Keith Silverstein. It was amazing. Lo and behold, to me, like I've told people if there's like an episode of OMB that we could do again, I would love to do that one because now I'm a lot more familiar with his work other than just from Overwatch, which was a very small part of his work. Because it turns out he was
Mhm.
one of the main characters in an anime called Hunter x Hunter, which I'd never seen before. But now having watched it, it's one of my favorite
Oh.
ones. And like, I was talking to my friend, I was like, "Yo, did you know Keith Silverstein's in this?" And he's like, "Who does he voice?" And he voices one of the main characters, this guy called Hisoka, who's like a jester kind of thing, but you would never know. It's like, wait, this is the same because he's so
Mhm.
good. It is so different
Ooh.
from the Swedish
Ugh.
dwarf in Overwatch. And like he's a very prominent voice actor. Like he's in a ton of Jujutsu Kaisen lately. He plays like 4 characters in that. He's just really good at he completely changes his voice. And having tried that in Starwell, damn, that's hard. It is so hard.
It's so
I still need to listen to How Crime, which is
yeah.
because that was you and Nichelle, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just having our delicious dish voices out. Very fun. Super fun. Yeah, and then you get people who can change their voice and then sing in the changed voice, and that freaks me out.
Yeah, I can't.
The voice actors who can be like, what if I were a tiny old man singing? And you're like, please get out of here. I can barely keep this going for 5 lines. And you're just like, I'll do a whole vocal performance.
Yeah. Nope, couldn't imagine. There's a reason. It turns out there's a reason I'm not a voice actor. And there's actually many reasons. But that's one of them. It's just the ability, and this is all stemming from an Orlando Bloom conversation. Who would have known? But turns out acting is hard. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not easy.
Turns out acting is hard.
Yeah, who knew?
And we got to give Orlando a little break. So curious, what is your most favorite scene from the movie and your least favorite scene from the movie?
That's tough. Most favorite scene, I guess it might be cliche and it might be expected.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already talked about it, but you shall not pass was
Yeah,
incredible.
the mines is the whole mines section is
Yep,
great.
the mines was amazing. I really the scene in the beginning when they're hiding from are they called wraiths? What are they?
The Nazgul.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ring race or the Nazgul, yeah.
Yep, when they're hiding from, like, the first one, like, under the tree,
Yeah.
and, like, you see the hooves of the horse, and, like, it just shows, like, how is a horse so menacing? And I thought that was that was tense, because it's like, well, we're like a half hour in the movie. Obviously, nothing's gonna happen to him, but
Mhm,
still, like, it did a great job of conveying, like, "Oh, shit,
mhm.
this is dangerous."
Yeah. It's funny that you picked that scene because when I was in New Zealand, we kept looking for any kind of pass where there was, like, a little tiny nutch underneath a tree to be like, let's do it, get in, let's do the
We
scene,
have to
do
hide
the
from the
scene.
wraiths.
Go, I'll take a picture and we'll pretend there's a wraith above you."
Least favorite scene? I'm not totally I'm not really coming up with anything off the top of my head. I will
Mhm.
say, like, the part where I was starting to doze off is, like, when they were first, like, heading into to the mines, I think,
Mm.
and I remember waking up and being like, "Wait, what the fuck? What's happening?" Like, I dozed off for, like, 2 minutes, and I was completely lost for, like, 10 minutes, but God,
Mhm.
least favorite scene? Um
And that doesn't mean that the scene was terrible. I mean,
Right,
if
yeah.
they're all good scenes and you're like, "I guess this one wasn't my favorite."
Yeah, I think I'd have to go with what we talked about with I'm butchering, but Galadriel, like, just kind of freaking out,
Mhm,
and I don't think
mhm.
that's anything to do with the film itself. It was just my misunderstanding and not
Mhm.
knowing what was going on with the movie at the
That's
time. But as like, I'm not sure there was any really bad scenes. Like, there was a couple
Mhm.
that were drawn out a little bit. Okay, I have an answer. I have an answer, actually.
Okay, good.
So
Give it to me. Lay it on
they're
me.
running from the Balrog, and they're on the stairs,
Ah,
and
yeah.
then everyone jumps except for Agaron, Stride,
Aragorn
yeah,
or Strider.
yep,
Strider's easier to say.
right, Strider
Yeah.
and Frodo, I believe,
Mhm.
and like, oh no, the gap got even wider because the stairs broke some more. And oh no, the stairs are breaking from underneath us. We're just going to hang out here. And the stairs are wobbling. We're going to show the bottom of the stairs and we'll show their faces. Then we'll show the bottom of the stairs and then we'll show the stairs. Oh, the stairs are really wobbling now. We're just going to keep standing here. We're still standing. And then, like, the stairs eventually just kind of fall into the other stairs where they need to be. And they just kind of, okay, we made it. What was all of that? Why?
Great choice. Great choice. I remember watching that with my husband, and he goes, "Well, that's just not how that would work."
Yeah, not even like, obviously that wouldn't happen, but like, it felt like it was like 7 straight minutes of like
Yeah.
stairs, faces, stairs, wobbly stairs, faces, concerned faces. Are they going to jump? Wobbly stairs. And they just kind of gently crash and we're fine. What was that?
I love the mines so much, but there were like 4 or 5 times where I had to stop and look at my husband and be like, "Okay, so this is either designed like a Dark Souls level where
Yeah.
it's just supposed to be treacherous, or like at one point in time, this was the home for these people who it was an operating and working. There are no
No
rails.
railings?
It's impossible to get from there to there without going over 15 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
No elevators, no slides, nothing."
Yeah. Yep. It was obviously, dramatic effect and all that stuff, but when you really
Yeah.
think about it, it's like, good lord. Like this is a terrible design. OSHA would have a fit.
And when the staircase hits the other staircase is fine. It's just like, yeah, I could handle that. They should both crumble.
They were on the
Yeah,
flimsiest portion of that staircase, and then everything else
right?
just
Just the
solid as a
one.
rock.
And it's so funny because this we were so tense from the previous scene with the Balrog that like we don't really need that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's long enough, so
It that yeah, for a second I was like, "Are we in the extended version? We're on the right one, right?" But I mean, honestly, it's a minor complaint.
oh
It's
god,
in
yes.
the grand scheme of things, it's still a tense scene. Was that after Gandalf died or before?
Yes.
It was yeah. So like, we already had a major character death. So like, I don't think they're gonna kill anyone else quite yet. Um,
Or is it
it
before?
might be,
Now I'm not 100% sure. I think it's actually just before because they get, like, right out after he
right?
dies.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, so
Um,
yeah, and he's on the staircase being like, "Come
Yeah,
on,
yep,
jump."
yep, yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. So, yeah, it was a little more tense, but,
yeah.
yeah, it did feel a little drawn out.
I wanna ask you about 2 particular scenes because there's 2 scenes. One is, one that resonated with my husband the first time he saw it, and, like, to this day, he's just like, "I'm so overwhelmed with that scene," and one is another one for me. For him, it was when they're escaping the Nazgul, and you have the Liv Tyler's character, whose name I always
Yeah.
forget, on the horse, and the river becomes horses, and it just takes them out. And for him, the first time seeing that was such believable CGI. It's also written in the book,
Mhm.
and he had read the book, and it was exactly as he imagined it would be visually having read it. And so he was like overwhelmed by this, like, oh my God, this is so cool. Did you feel that? Because it's old CGI now.
Yeah, I thought it was really neat. I don't Uh, none of it was like, "Oh, that looks kinda campy." I
Mhm,
think
mhm,
my only criticism with that scene is at
mhm.
first it made them seem like the wraiths were like, "Oh, no, water." It's like Sixth Sense, why would they not water is the most abundant thing on the planet. How are they're afraid of it,
Mhm.
but then they started crossing and I was like, "Okay, cool." Initially, I thought that's where they were going, like, turns out ring wraiths can't touch water. Um,
Nope.
but
They're descendant from the witch from The Wizard of Oz.
apparently, yeah.
Little known fact, it's actually in the same universe.
I who knew? Who knew? I thought the scene was very, um, like, I thought it was just, "Oh, she's just gonna flood it. It's just gonna be a big rampaging river or something," but then when the horses,
Mhm.
like, came out of the water, I was like, "Okay, that's neat."
Pretty cool. Yeah,
It
that's
was
pretty
it was a
cool.
neat moment, I liked that. And, briefly to touch on, oh, man, what is his name? He was Smith in The Matrix, and he was
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh, God, I knew his
I'm
name 10
completely
seconds
blanking
ago.
on him,
I don't
but,
know his name. Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving, so good, loved he and it's like he was because this is, like, soon after The Matrix, so he almost had the same
Oh, he was
cadence.
just doing them all,
Yeah.
yeah, you could absolutely hear him say "Mr. Anderson" at the
Yeah.
end of some of these lines.
But, what was the second one? The second scene, that you were gonna I didn't wanna get us too far off talking about Hugo Weaving.
Oh, yeah, no, so the sec for me is just like, there are characters so even though the Liv Tyler is not a character in the actual book, so they fit her into scenes that are really happening, and the main orc, the, like, smush on his face, hand-printed orc, obviously not in the original books. They needed something to be killed so that it felt like you defeated a super bad guy in
Right.
episode 1, so there's some sort of resolution. But the scene where he's fighting Boromir and like I mean, so he's fighting Strider and he gets the sword jabbed in his chest and he pulls it closer to him to keep fighting. That was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I know I was a teenager when I saw it, but it still hit the same to me today when I saw it last week. I was like, that's such a badass move.
Yeah, that was, like, the ultimate, like, flex, like, "Yeah, you got me, that's fine, but, like, I'm still, like" I'm not giving up. I'm not here cowering. Like, I'm not going to beg for my life. Like, I'm going to make you fucking earn this.
Yeah. My objective is to kill you. If I die in the act of killing you, still succeeded.
Yeah, yep.
It's like, oh fuck, this guy is
He
scary.
also, I laughed out loud when, probably at a time when you're not supposed to laugh out loud, but like he's killing Boromir. He's already hit him with the 2 arrows. He has giant arrows, by the way, huge arrows.
Yes.
And then,
And the Londra Archery Club arrows.
right, and like he walks up and you think like, okay, he's gonna pull out a sword or a dagger
Mhm.
or something. Is no, he knocks another arrow and he's just gonna he's gonna headshot him point blank. I'm like, that's a little extreme. You could have you could have maybe been a little more humane with that. But like, I don't know, I guess that was his one weapon and he just spams the one weapon.
You got it. I'm laughing extra hard because I was playing Elden Ring last night and I was attacking a guy who had a crossbow, and I guess that's all he had because I'm literally like face to face with him, about to hit him with my sword, and he shot me dead on with the crossbow in my head, and I'm like, I survived it, but I was like, just fucking come on.
Yeah, it's like there's no better way for you to go about that. But it's
It's
just a
something extra.
yeah, it was just a
Yeah.
funny like just visual of him like literally like 6 inches away with a massive bow and
Mhm.
arrow. Just it's like maybe save the arrow, dude. Like, have you ever played Last of Us? Like, you gotta save those arrows, man. Those are valuable.
Yes, and he had so many arrows in him that they had this like sheet of foam underneath the armor so that they could stick the arrows in and have them not flop down. So he's like just comically covered. And I think that's part of what he loves about these things. They're like Bean's like, if I'm dying, I'm dying big.
Yeah. Yep. They're gonna go out on their shield. That orc was I didn't know both Liv Tyler's character and the orc were not. They were like kind of
No.
made for it. I mean, Liv Tyler, she's riding the high of Armageddon. You got to get the name in there.
Mhm.
I'm literally just guessing that, but
Well, yeah, definitely. I think that's part of the reason why this is also going to be deeply monetized and franchised, and brought to places like McDonald's, where they need a female character for the female
yeah,
toys.
yeah.
And so that's kind of part of the reason. And in The Hobbit, there's actually a woman, I forget the actress's name. She was in Lost, and she winds up becoming a main character in The Hobbit. And she specifically said to them, look, I don't want to be included in a way that makes me just a romance character that is just here for, female toys. And they said, yeah, no, of course we won't, we will not do. And then they completely changed the script after she signed on, and that's 100% what her character became.
Awesome.
So, there's a little bit of that mixed in, although she does have a lot of agency and she is pretty cool, and, she saves them a couple of times, at least for Liv Tyler's character. Another interesting thing about that is they told her to live to pitch her voice down, pitch it really low for this particular character, to the extent that the first time she saw it with her dad, Steven Tyler, he insisted that she check with her agent because he believed that they ADR'd someone else's voice
Huh.
over her.
I mean,
He's like, there's no way. And then she did the voice for him live, and he was like, oh,
turns out she knew what she was doing.
shouldn't you could actually pitch that?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
for what it's worth, I thought, it was because my initial reaction was, is that fucking Liv Tyler? And then I
I
remembered, like, right, this was
know.
2001. Liv Tyler was a
Mhm.
name. I mean, I admittedly haven't followed much of Liv Tyler's career, so I don't know if she's still kind of around. But I thought, she had the cool moment with the horses, and I
Mhm.
thought it was she was a fun character. She did well.
Anybody who spoke Elvish, I think, did a good job.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
was hard. That's a real language they had to
Yeah.
learn.
Yep. Which having only knowing the one language and that's about it, and then getting like straight C's in Spanish in high school, it's not easy. But yeah,
Mhm.
I guess that calls back to like I don't think anyone really did a bad job with their
Mhm.
characters, and there wasn't anyone who just completely killed the movie for me. There was none of that. It was overall, 2024. This is my hot take of the decade. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring was a pretty good movie.
A hot take. Hot take, hot take. Right? Clip that out, put it on Twitter.
I
You'll be
know.
dead by the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm gonna get canceled. But turns out that Peter Jackson, he knows what he's doing.
Might know what he's doing. This might be the number 7 best rated film all time on IMDb for like maybe a reason, not just a lot of people like something bad.
Yep. Who knew?
Who
But
knew? So as we approach the end, I want to ask you two basic questions. I feel like we kind of covered, but let's at least get them. Did you like the movie?
I did. Yes, I did like the movie.
Yes.
Yep.
Would you recommend it to a friend?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a unique one in that I'm pretty much the last person to have seen it. So all my friends have already seen it. But if someone came up to me and said, "Should I watch Lord of the Rings? Should I at least watch Fellowship?" I'd be like, "Yeah, man, it's a good time." Um,
Yeah.
if you're
Mhm.
even if you're not into fantasy, I still think it's a great story.
Mhm.
The characters do such a good job of supporting everything. It's like, yeah, Elijah Wood gets like top billing or whatever, but like
Mhm.
even if you're not into Elijah Wood, there's so many other characters that make the movie super enjoyable. So yes, I would recommend this movie to a
Mhm.
friend. Yep.
Yeah, I would actually say that Elijah Wood probably does the least impressive performance. And that's only because there's so many good performances. And in this one he is really just kind of playing naive so much.
Yeah.
Like he it gets more nuanced as you go on, but if we're just looking at the first film, I would say that he's probably going to impress you the least because everyone is a true ensemble cast
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep. I was gonna say it's not a knock to say that like he wasn't groundbreaking. It's just
Yeah.
because everyone in the movie was so good.
Mhm, mhm. It's just because, you're also dealing with Christopher Lee as one of the characters, like, he's gonna be the best, you have no
Yeah.
choice, like,
Yep.
sorry, dude.
Yep.
I guess at this point in 2024, the people you would be recommending it to would be, like, nieces and
Yeah.
nephews or,
Yeah.
like, your friends' kids, you
Yep.
know?
I honestly can't think. I think I'm the last person I know who has never seen it. To be honest.
We officially did it. We got the very last
Yeah,
one
we
right
did it.
here.
If that's what this show, if there's one good thing that came out of it, at the you at least got me to watch Lord of the Rings, and I enjoyed it.
Yes, yeah.
And it gave me a nice night with my wife. We watched Lord of the Rings on a Saturday night. It was enjoyable.
Mhm,
And I plan on
mhm.
watching the others because they're already being the algorithm is working. It's being blown up on my streaming service. It's you need to watch this right
Nice.
fucking now. Um,
They're coming to
yep.
get you,
So
Barbara.
exactly. But yeah, it was so honestly. I mean, thank you for giving me the opportunity, not only to do this
Mhm,
show, to kind of flex
mhm,
the podcasting muscles again. I told my
mhm.
last time when we met for episode 1, or the first part of this rather, my like I'm so unused to talking at length anymore. My job, I don't really have to talk to people. I don't, it's just my like jaw hurt, and I was like, damn, I'm
Oh
like
god.
I'm weak. I'm out of practice.
Mhm.
But it was very enjoyable. So I do want to say, thank you for not only thinking of me and having me on and supporting OMV for all the years, but also
Mhm.
you gave me an opportunity to watch a really good movie. So I appreciate that.
Yay! Oh, wonderful. And you've been an absolute sport. We've covered some really interesting tangential topics as well as our favorite stuff in the movie. I This has been a wonderful conversation and I'm so thrilled to get to have you guys come on the show after years of supporting your show and being part of it and really feeling like these guys know what they're doing and they have been encouraging me to try this myself for so long. I like have people who know what they're doing believing in you is always like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it.
Yep.
So to get you guys here feeling like you were definitely part of the inspiration for it, that really pleases. I'm as pleased as punch, as they say.
That's it's great to hear, and especially because I think we touched on this in the first part again. I feel like I keep kind of prefacing myself with that, but it's a fun show. It's a fun concept. I was talking about it with my friends after we had done the first part, and like it's just like explaining the concept, like because there's so many podcasts just the same thing. Talking heads just spouting lukewarm takes at each other, or just rage bait to try and gain clicks,
Yeah.
engagement. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just not only I think this is a really cool idea, it also features a lot of people that I admire. Because I know you've talked with Brett. I know you're talking with Alex. I
Mhm.
actually saw Alex 2 days ago, and I was like, "Have you watched
Yeah,
what you're supposed to watch yet?" He's like, "I have," and I was like, "Okay, shut up! Don't tell me about it because I want to listen."
I want to watch the episode. I have been keen to not tell anyone because I also know I'm just like, "Oh, it's coming out on the first, so just a couple more days."
Yep. But I think this show is really cool, and I'm psyched to have not only been a part of it, but also see what comes out of it. It's a neat idea, refreshing.
Thank you.
But so congratulations and best of luck and all the usual platitudes or whatever the right word is. But
Mhm.
this has been a blast.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And as I always say to guests who come on the show, thank you so much for watching a movie that you have been categorically hesitant to watch and then talking to us about it openly about like why you might have been
Mhm.
hesitant. This is a testament to the safe space that we've created that we were able to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna cut it right here because this is all beautiful love and peace. So let's end the episode on love and peace,
That's
y'all.
a great place to end it.
I do not know what strength is in my blood, but I swear to you, I will not let the White City fall. Nor our people fail. Our people. Our people.
Welcome to the corrections and omissions portion of the show where we address things that we didn't maybe know on the spot or get correct on the spot, just to keep ourselves from stopping the show dead and Googling it at the point in time. I always say that we will put in a correction later on or put in that information later on. First off, when did OMV switch from weekly to bi-weekly episodes? JR says it was about 7 or 8 years in. He's absolutely right. I mean, he was there, so he probably knows. It was 4 years ago, which was 7 years into the show's run. The Saturday, August 19th, 2019 release of OMV episode 387 with Megan and Ali, building robots that probably won't take over the world, was the last one in their weekly format. The following day, they would publish an entry titled A Somewhat Significant Announcement and switch to 2 episodes per month. Who painted the Deadpool koi pond art? That was Eisner and Ringo-nominated artist Sarah Richard, and you can see that image and more by going to sarahrichard.com to see their portfolio. Who directed Whiplash? Jar was right again. It was Damien Chazelle. He wrote it too. He also wrote and directed Babylon and La La Land. For those curious on the exact specifics, The Fast and the Furious came out on June 22nd, 2001. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring came out on December 19th, 2001, just a smidge under 6 months later. The tomato eating scene from Lord of the Rings meme fame is from the third film, Return of the King. That's from 2003, when we get to see Denethor II, the Steward of Gondor, played by John Noble, grossing us out by maybe being too into those tiny tomatoes. Is Jonathan Rhys-Davies in all 3 of the original first Indiana Jones films? Sadly, no. Salah, the character played by him, is in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first one, then not in Temple of Doom, but then again he is back in the third one, Last Crusade. Dominic Moynihan played Merry. That's the one that was from Lost. The term JR is looking for to describe the collective of Stormtrooper cosplayers is Legion. It's not the 506, it's the 501st. The 501st Legion is an international costuming organization dedicated to celebrating Star Wars through the creation and use of quality costumes that portray villainous, morally ambiguous, and nonpartisan characters from Star Wars' universe. The Legion promotes interest in Star Wars and facilitates the use of these costumes for Star Wars-related events, as well as contributes to the local community through costume charity and volunteer work. Go to 501st or 501st.com to find out more about them and what their whole spiel is. The Rankin and Bass animated Hobbit wasn't from the 80s, it was from the late 70s or 1977 to be specific. Nikolai Coster-Waldau. See, I can say it. I could even say Patrick Rothfuss. The fifth and most recent entry in the Game of Thrones series, A Dance with Dragons, was published in 2011, not 2012. There are 11 volumes, or 66 issues, of Saga. They did take a 4-year hiatus from July 2018 to January 2022. I misquoted the line, it's "looks like meat's back on the menu, boys," not "Hobbit's back on the menu," is from Two Towers, the second film in Lord of the Rings' trilogy. The line is spoken by a Uruk-hai leader, Ugluk, played by Ben Michelle, in a scene where the orcs fight over eating hobbits, specifically Merry and Pippin, played by Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd. The full correct quote is, "It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to." This is directly from the book and not added to the script. Many of the good lines are true to J.R.R.'s original work. Little trivia note here for those curious. It stands for John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. I say that Orlando Bloom is 2 weeks out of acting school in part 2, but 2 days in part 1. I'm correct in part 1 and I misspoke in part 2. It is 2 days out of acting school when he gets offered this role. JR is correct. Torbjorn in Overwatch has a Swedish accent. Liv Tyler's character in the movie is Arwen. It's not Arwen in the book who saves Frodo in that scene with the horses. I think I say that in that part as well. It's a different elf from Rivendell, but the scene plays almost exactly the same, except that it's a male elf and it's not Liv Tyler. Lurtz, Lurtz, is the name of the leader of the Uruk-hai who kills Boromir. That's the smush-faced orc. That does not appear in the books either, just like the Liv Tyler character. Evangeline Lilly played the elf Tauriel in the Hobbit movie, and she's the one who didn't want to have her character turned into a love interest, but still wound up that way. Well, that's it for the corrections. I know that was a lot, but when you're doing something as dense as this, you wind up a little bit all over the place with a lot of different stuff to talk about. I hope that was enlightening, and maybe you will go down some more rabbit holes as a result.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
And that'll be it for this episode. Of course, if you want to hear more of JR, you can always go to omvpodcast.com and hear old episodes. Again, they were on for a very long time, over 10 years of episodes, and at the beginning they were doing them weekly. You can listen to a lot of that backlogged catalog there, even though sadly they are now retired and there are not new episodes of Opinions May Vary. There are, of course, new episodes of Starwell. Well, not new right now. You might not have seen all of Season 2. We are recording stuff, getting ready. The gears are turning on Season 3, so more to come on that. And of course, JR does some voices in that. Brett Kelly does some voices in that. I do some voices in that. Please check the liner notes out. If you haven't given an episode a listen, give one a listen. It's really fun. It's nice to get to listen to a fictionalized audio drama instead of your regular talkback podcasts. it's something I definitely suggest you try out. Another quick reminder about that Della Morte dell'Amore or Cemetery Man episode for Movie Night Extravaganza. See those liner notes, go to Movie Runtime, my YouTube channel, and you can see it there as well. I'm still Movie Runtime on TikTok. I'm still reviewing films, trivia, and more. Of course, the very exciting thing going on with me right now is that I will be finishing up my next short film, which will debut as part of the 23rd cycle of the Just Scare Me Collective, and that'll be in Burbank, California on June 8th at 8 p.m. at Blast from the Past. Keep an ear out for that info. I will give you more on the June 1st episode, as the 8th will be when that is happening. I won't be able to make it out there to California because, of course, I am on the East Coast, but I'm really excited to get to put out a new piece after so long. So, if you are in the California area, why don't you go check it out? You'll wind up seeing Jared Skolnick in the flesh. I mean, I don't want to dox him, but he's a really interesting guy, and you can meet him if you go to that, because he also will be having a short film premiere at that event. Lots of cool stuff happening there, always, and lots of cool personal stuff happening there. Little teasers for our next month's episode. Since we've made it past that halfway point, I'm going to allow for challenges back. I will be bringing our guest 1 and guest 2 from episodes 1 and episodes 2. Episode 1 being So I Married an Axe Murderer with Scott Tunderman, my husband, and episode 2 being Bad Boys with Ariel Faye Folds. They're gonna get me to watch a film that I have not seen but have been wary of seeing, that they very, very much like. So this is some if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander kind of medicine. Ari will be having me watch The Emperor's New Groove, starring David Spade, which I'm actually told is really, really phenomenal. It is both animated Disney and David Spadian, so you can see why I might have missed it. But it should be a very, very interesting episode. Get to tear apart why I haven't and how good it may or may not be. Scott is having me watch something I have never heard of, and I want to go into it pretty blind. It's called Ice Pirates, and the only thing that I have heard of it so far is that it is within the realm of like Airplane, your Leslie Nielsen, Spaceballs, kind of goofy, not straight comedy. A lot of obtuse humor, and if that is true, ooh, how did I miss this? Because your girl loves obtuse humor. That's it for the episode. I hope that you got some reflections, some thoughts, some guides and tips on how to approach people in your life with things that you really care about that they might not have totally experienced yet, in such a way that you can share it with them and increase the likelihood that they will also enjoy it. And, keep you from coming off as like a giant asshole. That's my goal here. I'm hoping to keep all you listeners from coming off like a giant asshole, because, happens to the best of us. As always, thank you so much for listening in, and if you've made it all the way to the end of the end of the end, thank you for getting to this point in the episode. You're probably Brett Kelly, or Scott Tunderman, or JR, or Alex Squires for this particular episode. Bless your hearts, I love you guys very much, and I'll see you on the next episode. This has been What If I Don't Like It with your host, Katie Baldessaro. See you later, Space Cowboy.